Next, let's get set up here. And so we've taken about 13 minutes to get just connected to the thing and all the things in my in-class links or passwords before we started the stream. But we have a couple little pieces set up on the remote machine that we're using. So I just want to bring that up as well, and so people can see. So we set up this machine yesterday using basically a PowerScript shell. And we are going to do some work in approval test. Just want to add the repo here, and let's fetch origin and pull. Let's make sure we're up to date. All right, and let's open this as well. We've got IntelliJ, and we're going to open project and code approval tests.
So during the preparation yesterday, we decided that we will work on approval tests Java because we assumed that most people will have easy time working on Java.
Oh yeah, I didn't even ask. So just show of hands, how many people have programmed in Java?
It's many years ago.
Okay, that'll be fine. And then, yeah, no, that'll be good. And then, so I think Fred also didn't raise your hand. What are you usually programming in, Fred? Oh, you're on mute.
Me? Oh.
Yeah.
Usually C, Python, Rust.
Yeah, all of these are C-style-y languages. So all of these are C-style-y languages, so this should be no problem at all.
Yeah. I've only recently started with Java, but yeah, not too much into it. So.
Likewise, we're going to be using IntelliJ. How many people are familiar with IntelliJ? Yeah, about half. All right. Also won't be a problem. You'll find all this stuff transfers fairly quickly. And normally we do like a toy problem, but we're going to do some actual real work today. But we're going to do it with a focus on facilitation as well. So like the idea here is to start giving people first an experience of what a mob is usually like when I'm doing, especially a remote mob, which is a similar but different situation, right, with some notable differences. So the first thing, let's just talk about the setup that we're in. So everybody here is from some part of Europe, except for me. I'm currently located in the San Francisco area. So the machine that we're moving into is actually located in Frankfurt, Germany, right? It's an Amazon EC2 instance. It's a T2 instance that we set up yesterday. And so that just makes it really easy to turn it on, turn it off. But it also means like my bandwidth is not necessarily reliable, especially nowadays. Ironically, despite being in like a technology hub, the internet is designed asymmetrically so that like it's much better for downloads than uploads, and a lot of times when everybody's working from home, my upload speed will just go to nothing. Like I'll still have 500 megabits down, but I'll get like maybe 0.5 up, and my ping times can go into the thousands, right? So like 10,000 milliseconds on a ping, which just makes it unusable. The plus side is even if all of that happens, everyone else will be able to continue working because we're not serving off of my machine, right? We're only getting the Zoom there. Okay, the Twitch stream will also die, but that'll be all right. So everybody is actually going directly to Frankfurt, and that also means that your ping times are going to be faster because it's closer. So we just have the speed of light, but it also means that like Amazon's pipe is the thing that you're connecting to. So nobody's home connection is the limiting factor, right? And that makes it much easier. And you'll notice as we're working in AnyDesk, it should feel almost like you're working on your own computer in terms of lag, right? So that latency between when you hit a key and when you see a character should feel instantaneous. And we'll check in at the end of this and see if that is actually the case, but it's a huge advantage to this style of working. The next thing that I want to check is the timer. So we are going to use the mob timer. It's going to be the very first thing that we do as our exercise. And so first, let's talk about, well, first let's get everybody's name in. So one at a time, we're going to go through and we're going to add our names to the timer. So Harold. You just type your name and hit enter. All right. Kevin? Gregor? Marco? Daniel? Fred? Dimitri? Oh, we didn't get Fred. Hold on. Dimitri, Fred. There we go. Okay, and it looks like we lost Audie. But if Audie can hear us, put your name in there. All right, we will get him when he comes back. So the next thing is, let's see if this actually gets bigger when I drag it. It does not. So when you're working in real life, one huge advantage that you have is that you can tell who's coming up next. And that's something that's a little bit lost when you're doing it virtually. And so what I've discovered is a good way to do this is with a calling out. So when we start, there's going to be 3 things that are going to be said. And so right now, and you can just sort of barely see Harold here. So we're going to have Harold, and so we're on 3 roles. We're going to have the person who's typing. I'll talk about the roles, what's allowed in each of these roles. But we're going to have one person who's talking or typing, one person who's talking, and one person who's next. And we're going to call out all 3 of those roles. So when Harold starts, Harold will be the first person. He'll be typing. Kevin will be next. He'll be the person who's talking. Sorry, Kevin will be talking. And then Gregor will be next. Right? So I just want you to practice saying that. So first, Harold, start as if you're starting your turn. So I just want you to say, Harold, I'm talking. Or I'm typing. You're on mute. We're going to unmute.
Harold doesn't say anything because he's just typing and I'm talking.
But I want everyone to call out what their role is on rotation. So I want to practice that really quickly.
Okay. Harold, I'm typing.
Kevin, I'm talking.
Gregor, I'm next.
Good. Okay.
But
so
what
then
does next mean? The next one typing or the next one talking? Or
it will be the next one talking. So when we rotate, okay, the talker will become the typist. So Kevin, continue as if we just rotated.
So I'm typing.
So who will be talking? So right after Kevin is Gregor. So Gregor, you're going to be talking. So say that you're talking.
I'm talking.
And then who will be next?
Will be next.
Great. And then when we rotate, what's going to happen? Who will become typing?
Then I will be typing.
Yep.
Marco, I will be typing, talking.
And Daniel, I'll be next.
Great. And then when we rotate again?
I will be talking? Or what do you mean?
No. So you were just typing. So when we rotate, it will be Marco at typing.
I will be typing. Yeah, I will be typing.
And I'm Daniel, and I'll be talking.
And Fred.
And I'll be next if I.
Oh,
Actually, in
Well,
this case,
so
Dimitri
check
is
the
next.
list.
Yep. So Dimitri will be next. Okay, so when we rotate again,
Should we call our names ourselves, or should
you
we
should
just
call out
say
your names because it'll help us get to know each other.
Okay.
But we don't see the list on the timer, right?
You won't see the list, but you will see who's talking. You'll see who's talking and who's typing. You won't see who's next, which is why we're going through this exercise right now, so we can start to figure. So you can figure out who do you follow. All right. So let's. I forget where we were. So Marco,
what does it mean that only one person is talking? What are the others doing? Is there any communication?
There's going to be very low communication in this first session. Right. I'll talk about why that is in a moment, but first I want to just get this mechanic before we move on. So, okay, so let's say, Marco, you're a keyboard, start your turn.
Okay.
I forgot where we were in the list.
Marco, I am typing.
Daniel, I'm talking.
Dimitri, I'm next.
Good. Rotate again.
Daniel, I'm typing.
Dimitri, I'm talking.
Fred, I am next.
Rotate again.
Dimitri, I'm typing.
Fred, I'm talking.
Harald, I'm next.
Cool, and I think that's our full rotation. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is how long we're going to take between rotations, right? And a lot of times people think about this in terms of how long do you get at the keyboard, but that is actually not how I think about this. How I think about this is how long between you getting to the keyboard, right? Oh, I should mention I'm not on the list, and that is because in this situation I'm just going to be a dedicated facilitator, right? So I'm not going to actually participate in the mob. You'll see that line get a little bit blurry, especially in the beginning of this. But in general, my goal is to not be part of the rotation. Okay, so the next thing is we have 7 people on this list, and so whatever time I do, I'm going to multiply it by 7. And I want the time between you getting to the keyboard and you getting to the keyboard again to be between 20 and 30 minutes, right? That means at 3 minutes, it's 21 minutes between you getting to the keyboard. I had that wrong. It's 6 people between you and the keyboard again. No, it's 7 people. Huh. Either way, 3 minutes is sort of like hits around my sweet spot, and then 4 minutes is sort of maxing me out. So I have a range of 3 or 4 to play with, and this particular timer doesn't allow me to use half minutes, right? So if I was doing it with like a different timer, I could maybe do 3.5 minutes. I'm going to go for the shorter side of that. So I'm going to put our rotation at 3 minutes, right? Now, 3 minutes is not enough time to really do anything. That is actually a benefit, right? Because when we rotate, you now have to carry on the other person's thought. And that means you have to be in sync as a group. It sounds weird. It's going to work to my advantage in the end. Okay, there's one other thing I'm talking about, and this is something I've just recently been experiencing and playing with, but we're going to take pauses as we load a new story and sort of write it out in English to get everyone on the same page, right? So there will be times where we pause the timer and just sort of sync everybody into, hey, this is what we're trying to do, right? And so, yeah, we'll work on that. Sorry, question? Oh, all right. So next, let's talk about the actual roles. So the first thing is we're going to have the person typing. I usually refer to them as the driver, but we're going to use typist right now because I think it's just clearer. The rule at the keyboard, the rule if you are typing is no thinking at the keyboard. So when you are typing, that is actually the easiest place to be. because you are only responsible for typing on the keys and hitting the mouse. That turns out is stressful enough. So if you're not thinking at the keyboard, the person who is going to be thinking is the talker. And for now, we are going to have a single talker. And the reason for that is we need to learn and develop that skill, right? Like there is a skill to getting your idea into the keyboard through another person's hands. And we have a lot of skill in getting ideas to the keyboard through our own hands. Like we might have 20, 30, 40 years of that skill. Chances are you have less than an hour of getting an idea into the keyboard through someone else's hands. Right? And there's two sides of that skill, and both of them are important. One is learning how to articulate your own thought process to do that, and we'll talk about some tips to help that in a minute. But the other is learning to listen to someone else telling you what to do, which can be hard enough even if you want to do what they want to do, but can be particularly hard if you disagree with what they're doing. Right, and the rule for here is even if you disagree, we're going to just do it anyways. Like that's part of the no thinking at the keyboard rule. And so we're going to make space to do that. And if multiple people are talking, it can be particularly hard to figure out who to listen to. And if multiple people are talking, it can be particularly easy not to learn this skill and just let other people talk, right, and just stay quiet. So we're going to do both of these in a very constrained way to make that space for each other. Now, after people get fluent in this, we usually open it up for multiple people talking at once. But when I say fluent, I'm usually talking about 180 hours of practice of this. Right. So if you're doing it 40 hours a week, we are looking at like 2 months before we sort of relax this into a free-for-all. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill. Okay. Okay, so we're at a place where we can start. We understand the timer. The one rule for the timer is going to be the person who's typing is the one who's going to start their turn, right? So no starting someone else's turn. Next, let's go, and again, while we're still on pause, we're going to just bring up the first story. Harald, you're going to be the first person at keyboard, so can I have you be at keyboard while we're in this pause, please? And
Sure.
Let's go bring up IntelliJ. And let's full screen that. And then first of all, let's start by just oh, we are not where I was expecting to be. Can you make the side window a little bigger? Huh. So it says that this is the approval test playground, but it also says, oh, I bet I've loaded the wrong thing. All right, well, it's always good to check. Let's close this for a second. And let's go to our Windows Explorer. Oh, right, so I didn't talk about how to talk. Let's bring that up as well. So when we are talking to each other, we're going to use a pattern of intention, location, details. All right. And the idea here is if you talk in intention, it's a much more grown-up way of talking, right? So like right now, I want to open up the Explorer. Harold knows what that means, and he did it. Great. But maybe he doesn't know what that means, right? In which case, I need to drop down. And I can tell that he doesn't know because his mouse isn't going where I need it to go, right? The windows aren't popping up. So I can now move to location and get him to the right place. And a lot of times that's enough, right? Like, oh, it's down in the bottom in the toolbar, or not the toolbar, in the dock, right? If it's not enough, you might need to drop to details. You need to right click, you need to left click, you need to drag, right? So intention, location, details. And if you do this, what will happen is nobody will be confused because you'll drop down to where they need, but also no one will feel like you're talking to them like a kid, which is also really abrasive. So this gives us a chance to always be at the right level and also to level people up. The next time you say it, there's a better chance that intention is going to be enough. All right, can you go into the Java?
Yep.
All right, and this is not what I want. So can you delete that directory?
The whole directory?
Yeah, the whole directory. And can you go to the starter project? And can you open up the PS script in Notepad++? And we are going to grab that clone command here. Take the first one. We're just going to edit it here, and then we're going to paste it into a PowerShip scale. So remove starter project on line 20. Yeah. Remove starter project in the first part, but keep everything else. And then if you go to the end of this, also remove starter project. Good, and then copy that line and let's paste that into a PowerShip script shell. You actually want the ampersand as well. Yeah. So the ampersand is due to the fact that that file name has a space in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right,
Cool.
so now if we open up Java, do we have that? Looks more like what I'm expecting. Okay, so now let's go to IntelliJ and open that up. And actually, in theory, this might still work. You can try opening that up. I don't know if that will work or not.
Okay.
Huh. The answer is no, it does not seem to work. So let's close it. You need to do a file close and...
Shall I exit it?
Wait, hold on. Actually, maybe it is doing it.
Yeah, it's resolving dependencies in the bottom.
Okay.
It usually takes a lot of time before it shows things up.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to do this while the timer is running.
Yes, and if I was slightly better, I would have confirmed and actually ran the test yesterday before we started. Sorry about that.
Well, it happens on shows.
Yeah. Well, so the other thing is, for some reason, my experience is every time I start, the very first time I start with a new mob, you're looking at like half an hour before you're really getting going to an hour. And I don't know why that is, but it has happened so repetitively to me that I just accept it now. Okay, so this looks good. Let's see if we can run all the tests and see them pass. I would expect them to.
In IntelliJ directly, or one of the...
In IntelliJ, yeah.
Shall I create a
I
configuration?
think you can just right-click on the project and say Run Tests.
Ah, yeah.
Although that would be being violated. Try right-clicking on the project inside the project. So if you go to Approval Tests, right-click on that and see if you can run the test from that. There we go. Run all tests. Yep.
So I assume it should pop up a test window. Okay, it's building.
good. Okay,
Alright.
so a couple things. First, everything is passing. You will notice that we saw errors pop up in the console and stuff. Those are on purpose, right? Like, so there's a lot of testing here that actually throws exceptions and catches them to make sure that they are being thrown and caught appropriately. So you're going to see that in the log. It's the green check that is happening that is telling us that everything is okay. All right, so next, let's start sketching out the first feature. And we're going to do this sort of test-driven, so you're going to see sort of like pieces, but I want to give sort of an overview as well. So open up the test file, or the test project, and open up source and test in there. This is structured slightly different than a normal Maven project due to what it would end up being circular dependencies if I didn't do it this way. So the tests are actually in a separate project than the project itself. So if you go under Java and the tests, org, approval tests, we're going to start here, and we're going to make a brand new test. So at the approval test level, can you make a options test? Yep. All right. So
Do you want to edit it?
Yep. You can add it. Yeah. So the first thing is, how many people have seen approval tests? Just so I have an idea of context. Okay, so let me give a quick how this works in general. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a quick test. So can you make a new test for me on 3.5?
So
if you just type the word test, it should.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. No, my AnyDesk. Yeah, I'm back.
Try control space.
Controls.
Should be tab.
Oh, capital test.
Capital.
The first one.
Okay.
Maybe the first one. That one. Try that.
Oh, okay.
There is also you
Should be a
can
macro.
press Alt Insert, and then you can choose Insert Test, and it will generate the code.
Oh, cool. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
J5.
Yep. Cool. Thank you, Gregor.
Right.
I guess I can remove the import now.
No, keep the import. You need the import for the annotation on 7. And so we're just going to do a simple test. So we're going to say approvals.verify hello. Oh, no. So the test name, that's just the test name. So hello name, that was fine. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to say approvals.verify hello.
String hello.
Yep. And then just run that.
Maybe quick question, because we've just seen it. Stuff like the name of a test, for example, is the idea that you, as a speaker, tell everything, also stuff like this? Or do you then, with
also
practice,
stuff like that.
more and more?
Yeah. I mean, everything you care about, you say. Or anything that they don't do that you want them to do. Right. But more and more, you're going to be like, the driver is really just typing. Right? We do not want thinking at the keyboard. Okay, so here's the important part that's in here. So first of all, notice it opened a new window, right, on failure. Over here on the left-hand side, we get the, you'll see in the file name, it's .received. So that's what you actually got. over here on the left-hand side is the dot approved. That's what you said is okay, which right now we haven't said anything's okay. So if we were to hit the little arrow and move it over, and then close it and save it, and run it again, it will now pass. So that's like approvals 101. However, if we change it to say hello2 and run it again, it will fail and we'll open that window again. All right, now the thing that we want to work on today, so that's like approvals 101. The thing we want to work on today is this window that pops open, right? And this is totally valid the way that it's happening, but let's do it a different way. So let's close it. And the way you would do this currently in approvals is you would go on line 7 or line 4, and you'd put another annotation. So let's go on line 7.5. So a new line after line 7, and do @useReporter.
User
Yep, that one. And say file launcher reporter.class.
Yeah,
so capital F. No, yeah. File, that one. File launcher reporter. Yeah, .class. So this allows me to inject a different way of launching. So if we run it now, and let's for right now use Visual Studio, or you can use Notepad, that's fine. But say always use this app to open the text files, and that'll be fine. So now it opens it through here. So the way that we choose what opens it is through an annotation. And that's the thing we want to change today. Change is a strong word. I don't want to remove this ability. I want to add an ability to do it explicitly, right? And I want to add that through parameter overloading with a new class you guys are going to create called options. And so we're going to have sort of two pieces today, creating the options and then rewiring things to take the options. So keep here in the Notepad, and I just want to give, well, actually, close this. So we're going to start here, and then I'll show you how to start automating these tests a little bit more. But can we just put some English after like line 12? So the first thing is that I want the ability to call this without passing in options. That maybe is not the first thing, that might be the second thing. The second thing is I want the ability to call it with an options as the last parameter. And then I want it to be able to pass it with an options using the builder pattern that says which reporter it wants. So like an options with reporter. But I also want it to work with options that just takes a reporter in the constructor.
Okay.
All of this. So pass with an options.
One builder pattern.
So one at a time. So pass with an options constructed with a reporter.
With builder pattern or with a reporter?
Constructed in the. I want it in the constructor. So new options of the reporter. Options constructed with a reporter. That's fine. And I want it with passed with an options using builder patterns of reporter or with reporter. And we're going to start with the options constructed with a reporter. So these are sort of like the 4 things I want you to sort of do first. And the first thing I want you to do is actually number 3. So on line 17, let's sketch out the English of that test. So here, there's a couple different ways that you can test a reporter. And one of them is something called a test reporter. So we're going to create a test reporter that tracks that it's been called. And then we are going to call verify with an options of that reporter. It's going to fail. And then we are going to catch the failure and check that the reporter was called. So is everyone clear on those 4 lines of English? Okay. And this is where I'm going to step out. We're going to start up the actual mobbing and see how this goes. Does that make sense?
Well, I have a question. What do you mean by create a test reporter? Do you mean a new class, existing class named test reporter, or what do you mean?
There is an existing class. It might be sufficient for what we're doing, or we might need to make our own one.
What's the name of this class? Is it test reporter?
It's test reporter. Yeah. All right. Or something to that effect. It's close. It might be in the different thing. We'll find out. You might need to create one. Either way, it will work. Like, I have faith that you guys will be able to figure it out from that little amount of English. All right. Start it up. Start with calling who's talking, typing, and next.
Harold, I'm typing.
This is Kevin, I'm talking.
You're on mute, Gregor.
Muted.
Sorry, Gregor, I'm next.
All right. And you can, sorry, I didn't talk about this, but you can click anywhere in that big gray square to start it.
Yeah. And then just leave it in the background.
Yeah, in fact, you'll notice when you click it, down in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little mini version of that will persist and let you see what's going on.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Okay, it's going to be fun. So let's start with the last line here. It says catch, fail, and check if reporter was called. It should say catch, fail, and check that a reporter was called, if I get that right. So let's create a new test.
Okay.
And just in that file, create a new test and.
In that file. Yeah. All right.
You can use the same class.
True. It was Alt insert or Control.
Alt insert.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, the name would be verify with options, with reporter in options, sorry.
Okay.
Do an approval just like in line 12.
Same.
Yeah,
print.
just hello. And then add a second parameter, which would be an options object. Just call it options and then go to the line above and create that variable.
Sorry.
Exactly. So this would be of type options, which we have to create, I think. So yeah,
Sorry.
and then just point it to creating a new object, and then use IntelliJ's feature to create the class.
And I do actually want this to be in approvaltest.core for the destination package. .core.
Okay.
And for the target destination, this is going to be, is that in a, yeah, that looks right.
Okay.
Rotate.
So I guess I'm typing now. So this is Kevin, I'm typing.
Okay, so this is
Finish
Gregor.
calling it out.
This is Gregor. I'm talking.
This is Marco. I am next.
Please go back to the options test. Yeah, and so please create a new go to line 28 and make a constructor like new options and pass in a reporter as an argument. Like this exactly. Yeah, just write down reporter and now extract the reporter variable. No, stop, please go back to line 29 and press Ctrl-Alt-V. And
I think you actually need to do an Alt-Enter.
Yeah, like this. That's what I meant, yeah. And this will be our reporter. I don't yet know.
I think it's called an approval failure reporter.
Okay, so then please write down a approver failure reporter. Exactly. And just create a new approver failure reporter. Let's see what methods this has.
Isn't that the interface?
It is an interface,
Yes,
so you can still
but
do
you
it.
you can write down new, and then it will show you what you have to implement. Ah, this is okay. And let's keep it empty for now. And let's jump to the line 35. So I want to now create this constructor and get away with the red underline. So please press Alt-Enter here on the reporter. Please go back to the test. Go to the reporter and press Alt-Enter. And then, yes, create constructor, exactly. Yes. And like this. And now you need to finish the refactoring. It's still a red box. So please press Enter once more. And now go to the, go back to the, let's finish this. Go back to the options, please. Go to the reporter argument in line 5 and put the cursor on the reporter and now extract the field. You can do this with Ctrl-Alt-F. Well, like this,
Just
that's also fine.
Alt-Enter will do it as well.
Yeah.
Rotate.
Yeah, this is Gregor, I'm typing.
Oh, this is Marco, I'm talking.
And this is Daniel, I'm next.
So I'm pretty unfamiliar with all this stuff. So could you go back, please, to the test?
Start your turn first.
Oh,
Gregor.
Gregor has to start.
Or that bell will not stop.
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, so we get an error at line 36. Can you take a look what the error is? The signature of the verify is wrong. What does it take? It takes an approval.
So it doesn't exist yet, but we want it to exist.
Okay. Where's the verify implemented? Could you go to the approvals class and look at the verify method there?
This one? Or
there are a lot of verify methods. Yeah, just
There are
go
a
to
lot
the
of
first
verify
one.
methods.
And we have to have a new verify method, I think. So which one we should copy one of these and add the option as a second parameter.
So that's very
which
good,
one?
Marco. However, you're jumping straight into details. What is the intention that you want to do right now?
Okay. Could you go to the test back again, please?
Yes.
I'm still struggling understanding what I actually want to do.
That's okay.
So, okay.
Why did you want to copy it? Just put that part to English, to words.
Okay, I get it. So just give me a second. I need to understand, okay, hello is a string. So the method we need to copy is the method which takes the string as the first parameter.
Right, but that's how to do it. Why do you want to copy it? What are you trying to achieve?
I try to build a method which do the same thing than the string method before, just taking a second parameter, which is the option.
So would it be fair to say you want to create a new method?
Yes, sure.
Tell Gregor that and see what happens.
Okay. Okay, please go back to the options.
No.
To the approvals, sorry.
No, don't worry about that. Start with the intention. Just tell them that you want to create a new method.
Okay, create a new method in the approvals class.
Which? This one.
Yes. Oh, okay. It already has the right parameter because IntelliJ does it for you. Okay, I get it.
And this is the advantage of talking in intention. So sometimes, and I would say frequently, I tell someone to do something and they do it much faster than I expected them to be able to do because they know something I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking in a way I would do it, not in like somebody else would do it. This is maybe the problem.
Well, just it takes practice to get to intention and then move. Yeah.
Okay. Could you please take a look at the original verify method, which takes string as the first parameter, so we can see how the implementation works? Okay. It takes the string is called response, and the line 48 does the actual verify with an approval text writer. So
the bell is rotate.
Sorry?
The bell means rotate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fast.
Okay, I'm Marco, I'm typing.
And Daniel, I'm talking.
Dimitri, I'm next.
Okay, yeah, please start the turn and then let's go back to the code. So what I would like to do now is make sure that the implementation of the method is still working the same as the original one. Let's have a look at the original one and see how it calls it. I think it's on line 48. And what I would for now try to do is just get it running, ignoring the options. So we have some running code and then can refactor it in the next step or improve the next step. So if you could make it do the exact same thing, for example, by copying line 48 and seeing if that works. And then renaming the hello string to response.
Okay, should I run the test?
Yes, please do.
So there's a shortcut, right? It's Shift F10. Oh, there's a rerun, right? There should be Alt Shift F10. No, damn it.
I think it's Control Shift F10 or Control F10.
Oh, okay.
But that is actually not running the test you want. So the first time you're going to have to run it.
Okay.
That's running the other test we made just to show what approvals even does.
Yeah.
But there's a little green arrow next to,
You run it this way. Okay.
Now rerunning it should work.
Okay. So this still is what we expect to see.
That isn't. Is that what you expect to see? It could be. Is what happened. Is it what you want to happen?
Yeah, I think it's not what we want to happen yet, because we actually have a different reporter from the options. But so the code itself is running, which is what I wanted to achieve in this step. So let's close this, and as the next step, to make sure that we actually use the reporter from the options.
Make sure that they actually use the reporter from the options. Okay, that's
Yeah,
a really
so
high-level intention.
yeah, the intention I think is quite broad. I'm myself not exactly sure how to do that, because I don't have good enough understanding of how reporters are used in here.
I think reporter is this one.
Yeah, can you please verify whether this is a reporter? So is this implementing the reporter interface?
This is a approval failure reporter over here. This is called approval text writer. How do I see?
Yeah, because it's called writer, not reporter. That's why I'm not
okay. It
that
implements
sure that's actually
writer, not a reporter. That's
Yeah.
right. Not a reporter.
Okay, so how does it at the moment use the reporter? That's my intention would be to figure this out, either by getting input, but I think our input is currently not at the desk. So then let's look into the code of the approval text writer to see, to search through it until we find the usage of a reporter. Okay. And based on that, understand where we need to go next.
I think we need to rotate.
Reporter in there.
And yeah, it's time to rotate. So let's rotate. So
Daniel, you are typing, I guess, right?
yeah, and then I'm typing.
And I'm Dimitri, I'm talking. And Fred is next. Daniel, could you please start the timer, and then we'll move on. Great, thank you. And actually, could you please go to the test and make it appear it does not fail for this reason, because for this you actually need a catch block, and let's fail by deliberately reason. Just make it by catch around it and expect, let's make a green by expecting it to fail.
So,
and for error, you want to write exception actually, or maybe probably error. It's assertion error, I think. The type is assertion error. And if you, yes, just click on enter. And actually let it fail otherwise, but well, run it first and see what happens. Click at line 10 at the character, so to run all tests all the time. Okay, and then if you close this, then the verify with reporter is options is still failing, and actually I don't understand why this test is failing right now.
Read the error message.
Sorry?
Read the error message.
Yes, I'm doing approved failed approval error, but we wanted to try to catch the error. It's failed approval.
What is the error? It actually tells you what the error is. What's the error?
Yes, but actually for a moment I want to ignore it, because I
know, but you're not ignoring it because you didn't read the error. What's the first line of red actually say?
Java lang error. Does it mean that
so
you are not using the assertion error, but
that
well,
is
you
what
can
that means.
try to catch any error? But so it's the first thing I would actually fix in this framework, but I don't have enough time and passion. So replace assertion error just by error, and see if it helps and run the test.
No, this did not work.
Oh, yeah, we're making progress. Then you can close the window and write the assertion. So we want to make sure that this method report have been called. And therefore, you want to assign, probably introduce some member variable and assign it there to true to see if it has been filled. My time is over.
Okay.
So Dimitri, I'm typing.
Fred, I'm speaking.
Harald, I'm next.
All right, so I'm a bit lost with all of this. I'm not familiar with these approvals and what the reporter is exactly doing. So
in English, can you say on line 36 or 39 what we want to do?
I mean, I think the on line 38, the catch is just there to make the test pass. But
yes, but there is something we want to check on line 39. It's in the original English. Do you know which part it is?
I don't see it. So catch failure and check that reporter was called.
Good. So have we caught the failure?
Yes.
Have we checked that the reporter was called?
So yeah, we have to check that the reporter was called. But
so first put that just in English, just so we're on the same page of where we're going.
Okay, then
as a comment.
Maybe it's something like reporter dot has been called, or
Hold on. Start by just writing the English there, and we'll get to how you do it in a second.
Okay.
But can you actually put it on line 40 so that it's? So there's lots of different ways you can do this. How would you like to do it?
I would implement a method in the like the approval failure reporter.
Okay. So let's pretend you already did that. Just use it.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of using it, would be that it should look something like reporter dot has been called.
Don't get rid of the English until we have this working.
So you can call.
But write the line underneath it in code.
So reporter dot. So if reporter dot has been called, or yeah. I guess it takes no parameters because that's something we will come to later.
Okay, rotate.
Yeah, I mean, you can close the if condition. And
by the way, I've noticed, so go to rotate. I noticed that our thing is a little bit out of sync. Because right now, Fred should be typing, right? Can you bring up the mob timer?
So,
Fred, can you bring up the mob timer?
Now I am timing. Now I'm typing it.
Yep. But notice notice right now it says Harold. So can you just hit the fast forward buttons up at the top until it gets back to Fred?
Okay.
There. Yep. And now, so Fred's typing. Who's talking?
So yeah, I am typing.
Harald, I'm talking.
With Kevin, I'm next.
Nice.
Okay. Can you please add the empty parents after has been called? And I think instead of the if condition, we would call a assert. I don't remember how it works in JUnit, assert that. There is a typo. Can you fix use double S? Yeah. Assert. What does it provide?
How do you mean? What does it provide?
Okay. In the mod, does anybody know how to assert?
I would use Control Space after assert to see if there is anything suggested by the IDE.
Yeah, I tried to do that, but it keeps inserting a space.
Assert true with a
I
capital
believe
T.
it's a capital A.
All methods in Java are usually lowercase.
I think you can do asserts dot, and then you get all the different asserts which are in the asserts class. These are just short. The other ones are just shortcuts for that.
With the capital one, right?
With the capital one, exactly.
Assert.
Oh,
then you
no, that's just me. That's that.
Then you get different assertions. Yes.
Okay, assert true. Yeah, exactly. And passing has been called as a parameter. Okay, and closing. Okay. So we have already. Okay. Yeah. And can you hit Alt and implement has been called method? I think it should generate it for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the Boolean as a return value, and we implement it and just return false. Okay. We need to make it public. Okay.
I think we are in the interface, so it's definitely not the right place for implementing this method.
Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. Yeah. So Harald, I'm typing and just need to quickly switch.
Am I talking?
Here, I'm next.
So I don't know Java, but let's try something. Please go to the options test file. And please rotate in the tool. Great. So let's just create a bool variable in line 30.5 that says has been called. Just a local variable. And initialize it with false.
Because it's Java, it should be member. Class member. Otherwise, it does not compile.
Is it because it's not beautiful or because it doesn't compile? So
it will not compile. Like here, you cannot change it inside internal class. Or
okay. Even if it's like.
Well, I think so. Let's see. I'm not talking.
Okay. Yeah, let's try that anyway, because I want to see the error, because I'm adventurous. So in report, set it to true, and then let's see what the error is. In the report function of the reporter.
Yeah.
Then try to compile that. Or what does it say? What has been exited in a class?
It says just what I was told from. You need to make it a test class member, because otherwise you will not compile at this position.
Okay, then let's edit. Then move this Boolean declaration one line below into the
Actually,
two lines
that's
up,
not the
actually.
issue. The issue is mutability in Java lambdas. If you put it back in, so what I'm about to do is so weird, but this is how you have to do in Java. Instead of making it a Boolean, making it a Boolean array.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Because it's just a reference that needs to be final, right?
And then put curlies around, exactly, that's what it's trying to say. Put curlies around the false.
Oh, nice.
And
Now
then you
in
can
line,
mutate it on 35 by mutating the first one. A square bracket 0.
Oh.
cool. Then add a new method to the approval failure report that we've created here, which is called has been called, and that implements what we want.
Okay.
Oh, this is Kevin. I will be typing.
This is Gregor. I will be talking.
This is Marco. I will be next.
So to me, this is a little bit ugly. I would like to change the design of this dummy approval failure reporter if you're okay with it. And I would put the Boolean as a field inside the new approval reporter, because if we do it like this, we can sort of build like our own stub that we can use in several tests.
So let me suggest you get it working first. But
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then get it to there.
Okay. So then please,
Well, you can access this field directly. You don't need the method has been called, because actually for this you would need to have a special class and everything. Yeah, so remove the method and just check the variable.
That's true, but let's just for now keep the has been called method, so it will be later to refactor it then. So
okay, you will not get it compiled this way.
can you please check what the failure is on the red line? On line 47.
The report interface doesn't have this method.
Okay. Then yeah, then he's right. Then please use the variable has been called instead of the method. Okay, and so as assert true first, I guess needs a string. So just put some string, just put hello, and let's see what he prints when you run the tests. Okay, now run the test, please. We still got the compile error here. Please remove this entire public boolean has been called of line 7 to line 9. Please remove it completely to get rid of the compilation error. But we need, I think you need to keep the report function. Just remove this lower method, exactly. And now go back to the test and run it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is Gregor. I will be typing.
This is Marco. I will be talking.
And this is Daniel. I'll be next.
Okay, we have seen that the test was running. We get an error, however, which is the report. This is the assertion error. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so maybe we should do the refactoring now and use an attribute of the class instead
But the
of
test is failing now, right?
the test is failing. That's right.
Because of the right reason.
The reporter should have been called. And it wasn't called because it's not working yet. So would you rather get it running first before we do
Of course,
the
yeah.
refactoring?
If we do the refactoring, it should be running first.
So happy with you guys right now.
Okay, that sounds good. But now that's a good question how to get it done. So the has been called. We need to make sure that the report method actually has been called so that we set it to true. So the verify of the approval should actually call the report method of the failure reporter. So could you please go to the verify method of approval?
Yes.
And where do we have the reporter? Do we have it in options
And
yet?
go to the next verify and check how it, because it's not the right one.
It's not the right one?
Go to the next verify called in line 215.
Could you please go back to the test? I'm not sure if I understand what you're telling me, Dimitri. We have a verify here, and it's a verify which also takes the option.
Yes, this verify is calling another verify, and I suggest that you navigate to this other verify because you want to find the verify which actually calling some reporter.
I think the reporter is inside of options, so we can.
Yes, but now it's calling another reporter which shows you this editor, and you want to find the place where it is called.
Oh, okay.
I'm not allowed to talk much. I'm violating on principles because I don't agree with them partly, and I should.
This is a problem if we call both reporters, actually. I mean, we can make sure that it calls our reporter first, and then we could remove the other reporter.
Well, anyway, we should find this place because we have not identified the position where the reporter is called and how it is initialized. And therefore, we want to find this place.
He's leading you in the right direction. If you control click on verify on 214, you'll see what's actually happening under the covers.
Okay, so take a look there. Okay.
There is a get reporter.
There is a get reporter. Okay. So can you take a look at the get reporter?
Yes, but we are now rotating.
Okay. So I'm Marco, I'm typing.
I'm Daniel, I'm talking.
No,
who's next?
It says turn.
And I think Dimitri is next. So
Something right.
Yeah, good idea, thanks.
Oh, we have two mob timer running now. That's pretty interesting.
Oh, could you somehow close one
one?
of them?
let's clean this up first.
Can we tap through it? No. How does it work? How can I get back?
You can
click
right
anywhere
click
on the red.
the tab. Yes, or just to close the red one.
Well, the red one's the one you want.
Oh yeah, is it? And the other one is?
What is happening now? Somebody else is using the keyboard, right?
Someone else might have their mouse there. All right, Marco, click anywhere on the red.
I didn't do anything at all. Okay, now
click
I click
on the red square.
Okay, I click, nothing happens. Nothing happens.
All right.
Nothing.
Let me try for a second.
Do we still have two timers running?
There it goes. Can you?
That's good.
So Daniel, it looks like is moving the mouse, but I think he is in no control mode.
Yeah, the problem
Marco.
is on my screen, the text is too small, so I need to use a magnifier, and I need to use the mouse to move around to see. But I'm not clicking, and I've disabled input specifically for this reason. So
should we make the text a little bit bigger?
It's fine like this. It works like this. It's just I have a small second screen here. Okay, so we now saw that this get reporter thingy is what gets the reporter. So let's figure out where it gets the
The mob
reporter.
timer is still wrong. It's still oh, yeah, it's my name. I'm typing. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good.
Yeah.
What should I do?
So in the approvals file, we just found the verify function, but I've lost it already again. So let's go to line 240 and the verify function that is called there. Let's please look at this.
At line what?
214.
214. Yep.
There we call a verify method, and let's please look at which verify method this is. Okay, and this one uses get reporter in line 104. Let's understand what this does. So let's have a quick look at this get reporter. So this just creates some kind of reporter. Okay, that makes sense. Let's go back. What happens with this reporter in the next step?
Okay, how do I get back? Is there a shortcut for getting back to the last place?
Most likely, someone knows it.
Probably it's control
There's not a
minus.
git man.
Control Alt left will bring you back to where you were before.
Yeah, that's what I tried, but it goes to the last file, not the last place in
No,
the
it goes to the last place. Only Alt left and right goes to different tabs.
No.
Seems not to work. Then let's not worry too much about it. The file is fortunately quite small.
Okay, where should I go to?
So to the verify function again, you can, for example, go to line, this one, and then let's have a look at this verify function. What is actually added in from get reporter, just to be sure we're adding the right reporter. So the definition of this verify function, please, of the verify function in 104.
Okay.
Yeah. So this gets an approval failure reporter. So this seems to be what we need. So what I would do, what I want to do is pass in the reporter from the options instead. So instead of calling the verify in line 102, I want to call the verify that is called from line 104. So please copy line 104 to our new implemented method at the end of the file.
Okay. Still something strange happening with my keyboard here. Oh, now it's working. Okay.
Replacing 214.
I try. Something's wrong here.
Probably try hitting all of your modifier keys once. I think you have sticky keys at play. So like hit the Alt, the Command, the Windows key, the Shift. Just type them once, and a lot of so sometimes I've seen it where the key gets triggered on.
Yeah, it really does strange things.
All right, rotate though.
No, I think it's still sticky, but it's not. I don't know. I don't think it's my keyboard because this is nothing normally happens.
It's probably your keyboard with any desk. But either way, rotate. And we don't have to deal with the problem for another 20 minutes.
Okay, I'm Daniel and I'm typing.
Okay, Dimitri, I'm talking.
Fred, I'm next.
Please click on the rotate button or bird in the red square, Daniel, so that will start the timer.
Nothing happens for me. And I've re-enabled my mouse, so I can click between windows, but I cannot start. Now
okay, looks like it started, and looks like we work with lots of static methods. It means that the right reporter should be passed as a parameter from the options as a second parameter to this verify, and then probably and so I suggest that you just create a new verify method here which accept text actually just I'm sorry, just call the verify, remove these things, and just add a parameter to the call in line 214. The next parameter, after the first closing bracket, exactly, options, and take the reporter from options. Options dot, and just reporter with brackets, dot reporter with brackets, With parentheses, yes, and or create this method. Let us give a reporter back.
In
Create
Can you call
method,
it
yes.
get reporter to stick with our Java?
It's refactoring. Don't call it get reporter.
Fair enough.
Just return the reporter here. Oh, that's great. It's not string. It's approval favor reporter of the type. So fix the type. Now it compiles. Let's get back because the test is not green yet. Go to the approvals, and here you want to use Alt-Enter, and it will suggest you to create a new method, verify in approvals, or maybe change. Well, probably. Well, create is always safer. Let's create a new method. Probably it's a better way. Yes, and move it to near the method which has been called before, which takes just one parameter. And copy this this one parameter of type approval text writer or any writer, you know what I mean, the method which has been used before. I want to see two methods close to each other. If it's hard to find, you can remove a second parameter and navigate. Yes, then you can go there and paste the result there, so that we have two of them close one to each other. I think, yes, now you can call it again, and then my time is obviously over. Dimitri, I'm typing.
Fred, I'm talking.
Roll them next.
Okay, so I guess we implement the new verify that we just added.
Yeah.
So we have, yeah.
If you stop talking now, I'll just do what you have said so far.
All right. We can, yeah, go back to the test and check. Yes.
Congratulations, you have done it.
Nice.
Okay, so let's go.
Now that we have it, a long time ago, and I forget who it was, suggested a refactoring, and I sort of asked them to hold off until he got to this point. But let's try whoever's idea that was now.
Yes, I had the idea that we can create our own reporter to use for other tests as well, and that it is some kind of a stub that records the values that are passed to it. So this means that the has been called would be like inside this reporter. But I will stop talking now, sorry.
No, I mean, it leads me in a direction, so that's nice. And so I'm actually not entirely sure what is this pattern of. So approval failure reporter is an already existing class, and this is a constructor that gets implemented here.
So-called anonymous class. Therefore, you can replace it by named class. It's actually what you want to do.
And there should
be
a
anonymous because it has not gotten any and its own name.
Okay, so let's extract that into like our reporter. So yeah, approval. Yeah, maybe. Okay, it's fine, I guess. I wanted to add like a hint in the name that it's with options.
So rename it. You're in control.
With options?
Yeah.
Yeah. The time is all done.
Okay. So I'm.
Oh, I need to. Sorry. Because I need to confirm multiple times. I actually hate IntelliJ.
Rotate.
All right. So I'm Fred. I will be typing.
Harold, I'm talking.
Kevin, I'll be next.
Okay. Could you extract this class into a new file? There is a refactoring for that.
Well, I have a question to Facilitator. If we are going to have some retrospective and some change in the mode, or if we are going to continue this way till the end of the session?
We'll do retrospective half hour before the end of session.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to do the
Yeah,
refactoring.
I usually use Control-Alt-T, Control-Alt-Shift-T for refactor this.
Okay. That didn't do anything.
I think the location is fine. Does it work?
So you mean run the test?
No, for extracting it to a new file.
No, it doesn't. So Control-Alt-Shift-T doesn't do anything.
Then
Also
try
great.
just F6.
Refactor menu. Oh, okay.
That's
Winner
it.
class to upper level or to another class? And I guess no.
I don't know about that one.
Upper level should be fine. It will be then its own class.
Okay.
Then you can move it wherever you want to.
Okay.
So I think we were doing things in core. Where should that go?
The test can stay where it is. That's fine.
Yeah, it stays in the test.
Okay.
So please hit refactor. Okay. And add it to Git. Okay. So we extracted that. Gregor, was that refactoring already? What you were pointing at?
Yes, except we don't need it as an array, as a Boolean array right now.
Yeah, because it's not a lambda anymore, so you can remove the array. I mean, we should run the test first. Could you rerun the test?
Yeah.
Should be fine, but just to be on the safe side. Okay, cool. Please remove the brackets of the array and remove the where it has been called. Oh yeah. Also line 13 exactly. And line 17.
Okay.
And it's final, so we can't change it.
Okay. Please remove the final.
Yeah. Okay, good. Time is up.
Okay. So Harold, I'm typing.
Kevin, I'll be talking.
Gregor, I'm next.
So Harold, please do the rotation. Now we have an interesting situation because I disagree with this choice.
But we're going to do it anyways. We'll vote afterwards.
Yeah, it's just that I would basically now put it back. So
no, get it working
doesn't make
first.
any sense, right?
Get it working first.
Getting it working first. I think we. So the array is gone. Now please go to the options test and make sure that we actually use the has been called method in the assertion instead of the array on line 37.
Which line? 37.
Yeah, we're still using the array, and I wanted to use the has been called function of the reporter instead. This will not work directly because you have to use the class instead of the interface. Yeah. You have to, so you're still using on line 31, the type of reporter is still the interface. And the interface doesn't have this method. So you need to use test approval failure reporter with options for the type of reporter.
Okay, sorry, I'm a little bit lost now.
Just
go to location.
Moving the parameter was fine.
Go to
just make sure
location.
that on the start of 31,
There we
the
go.
type of reporter is still approval failure reporter, which is the
okay.
doesn't have this. Okay.
And this is why, like, if you say intention and it doesn't make sense, location will often make your intention make sense. Right? But not always. So sometimes you still have to move to details.
Now removing has been called as the parameter was fine, and also the variable in line 30 can be removed. And then finally in line, there has been called method on line 36, you're still missing the parentheses. And then please rerun the test. I think you still take an argument in test approval failure reporter with options that you don't need. Instead, initialize has been called to false. You need to do that in a constructor, I guess.
There is no has been called parameter anymore.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Do you want me to remove that one?
Yes. So I'll be typing.
Yeah.
Gregor, I'm talking.
Marco, I will be next.
So now you need to, yeah. So let's run the test again and see if it works now. Okay, it works. So you had a disagreement. You wanted to move it back to the test, or what was your intention?
So my two concerns are.
So first of all, pause the timer. The pause is actually a little bit tricky. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, did I hit it?
Yeah, it's a hidden method here. So I'm going to show just a couple things. First of all, notice, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I'm clicking on the little mini window down in the corner, and it will pop up the big window. So that's just an easier way usually to get this up. There's a hidden button next to the play button seems to be blacked out here too, which is weird. But there's a hidden button next to that for pause, which will turn it yellow. Okay, so sorry, Kevin, you had some concerns. Let's voice those first.
Yeah, first of all, I wouldn't, if I were to extract it, I wouldn't call it test approval failure reporter with options, not only because it's long, but also because it doesn't take any options. And then secondly, I'm not sure I would actually refactor it out because it's only used in there, and I don't refactor stuff out that you ain't gonna need it. We're only using it at exactly one place in a very specific way, so I would just keep it in there.
Sorry, are there other voices we need to hear first?
I was just asking what he was going to call it. What would you think would be a good name for it?
I realized that it was a very hacky solution, but I would have actually kept the anonymous class.
But if you were to pull it out, what name would you give it?
Depends. So if the idea is to have a reporter that just is basically a mock that tells you what it has been called, you could call it a mock approval reporter, mock approval failure reporter, something like this. And that's it. Does
So,
it take any
let's
options?
start with that suggestion first. So we're just going to use thumb votes. So just put your thumb up and down. Up is I agree with it. Down is I don't agree with it. Sideways is I don't care. But either way, everyone vote. Do you want to try the mock reporter name?
Change it or about a new name?
Well, we'll start with just one thing at a time. So start with do people prefer the name mock reporter?
Are there any options or just one option? So
No,
if I have a choice, I want to know all options.
If there are other names, we can do it.
Yeah, actually, I think it's not a mock. It's actually more like a kind of spy. I would call it a spy, because the mock you do your expectation before you call it, and with this thing you get the what's happening inside there, and then you take a look with assertion. This is a spy, not a mock.
Yeah, but it's also this at the same time. It's not a mock. It's also not really a spy, because we're not calling the real one. If it was a spy, we would also call the real one instead, right?
No, not necessarily.
Well, I would probably call it a verifying reporter.
What?
Okay, so
verifying reporter. Verifying, because it does verification. Everything else is for me technical things here. It does verification, therefore it's verifying reporter. And don't use too many words, because the less words the better. Verifying reporter is just a word.
Mock reporter. We have.
I think this is reasonable.
Verifying reporter.
Yes. Why between F and I?
Reporter.
Approval failure reporter spy.
We have.
That's the one I would like.
Failure reporter spy. Do we have any other options?
What about the original option of not extracting it?
We're just working on the name at the moment.
Okay.
One thing at a time. Any other options for the name?
I mean, the point is, if we don't extract it, we don't need a name.
Yes, but we can always delete a name easily. Like let's first get to what our two choices are. So, any other options on the name?
We can fix spelling at verifying reporter, adding Y between F and I.
All right.
Yeah.
So again, we're going to vote. Again, you're going to vote on every single one. Who likes mock reporter? Everybody's thumbs should be up right now, or everyone's thumbs should be present. All right. Who likes verifying reporter? Who likes spy reporter? Who likes approval failure reporter spy? Overwhelmingly, that is the name. So first, let's refactor it to that.
I guess I'm still.
Yeah, do you mind?
Okay. So should I start the timer again?
No, don't start the timer yet. We're still in decision mode.
There was some.
Refactor, rename.
Shift F6. Yep. And then you need to click enter as long as, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Delete the English there, like we've gone through that. Delete 29 through 32, yeah. Next, we're going to vote on whether or not we want this as a separate class at all, or if we want it as the anonymous class inside of here. So again, thumbs. If you want it, put your thumbs up.
We need to first, I think, clarify.
There is another option, have it as inner class here. Not in some other place, but just directly here, named.
All right, so let's do number 1, anonymous. Number 2, inner, and then number 3, or yeah, that's fine. Good. Is there any other options?
Oh, we do.
And external probably would be the alternative to inner.
All right.
And
Who likes anonymous?
Logically, external should be after inner.
It doesn't matter. It's fine. So number one, who is in favor of the anonymous class? 4 of them. All right. Who is in favor of the external class? Okay. And then who is in favor of the inner class? All right. Oh, that is a tie. I think we had more people for inner. Let's only do show of hands. You only get to vote once because that was kind of close. We're just going to do it between inner and anonymous. So who wants anonymous? And who wants inner? Marco, you are the tying vote breaker, and you
I
have
don't
not
have
voted.
a strong opinion about that. I'm not too familiar enough with Java to actually have a strong opinion about that.
All right. In that case, I will break the tie and make it an inner class.
Well,
So,
it's not about breaking the time. It's about telling why. And as a facilitator, you may decide not to tell why, but actually it's time to reason. Anonymous class has limitations of not being able to add their member variables, which are easy to check. And therefore, internal class, named class always gives you more freedom and flexibility in Java.
actually, that's not why. The why is I'm going to make you write a second test, and you're going to need to be able to track that the reporter is called in the second test as well. So it's the reuse of it.
For this reason, we could just have written the second test.
Yep.
Well, I mean, both reasons are valid.
Before I make you undo what you just did to anonymous and then see the pain, I'm just helping you a little bit on that pain. But yes,
but actually, I think it was reasonable because if requirements come in and they changed, then like it is painful, but we kind of have to work through it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Like I could make you go through that pain and then we could do it again.
I mean, we already know that the pain is coming because we already thought about which kind of test we need.
I mean, the good thing is we have the product owner in the mob, more or less, to tell us what is coming next. So let's utilize that.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want as product owner, though, that we still don't have. So there are a couple things I'm going to push back on. I'm going to bring them in one at a time as we resume going into the mob. Okay? And then we're going to break again when we move to the second story. But so step one, refactor it to the inner class, because that's what we voted on. So we're going to resume there. We have Kevin at keyboard, Gregory at talking, and who's next?
Me.
All right, cool.
Okay, so please go to the approval failure reporter spy and refactor move it to make inner class of options test. And maybe you need to write it like this, exactly the camera case. Okay, great. But let's now run the test. It should work.
Okay, now I get it what you mean with inner class. That makes sense.
Nice. But now what I don't like is that we just check whether it was called. I think we should also verify that it was called with the correct arguments. So we need to not only save whether it has been called, we also need to save whether it has been called with the correct arguments. So I suggest to not break anything. We will do a second assertion.
Just a quick question. I know I'm not allowed to talk, but how is this addressing what we need to implement right now?
It's just what we voted to do, right?
No, I mean checking that it's called with the right parameters, because we instantiated here, it's called, that's right.
We're just checking that it's been called.
If it is not, I guess if it's not passing the hello, it's not working. So
Yeah, the thing is, we just assuming that the test does the right thing, but we are not really sure of it.
Sure, but we test explicit, like the idea is to test that the reporter is used, not that verify that approvers actually works correctly and passes the right stuff to the reporter. That's the test of another module, right?
Yeah. We're just checking that it's called. But so we have a couple things. First, on options, I do want the get reporter as the API signature. So
yes,
can you do that first?
Please go to the options and rename that to get reporter. And there is occurrences found in
I have to accept it. Do refactor, because otherwise it will not. Yes.
That's fine. Okay. So let's rotate. I'm Gregor. I'm typing.
I'm Marco. I'm talking.
And I'm Daniel. I'm next.
Okay, so I'm a little bit lost what we actually want to do now. Should we start the second test now, or should we make sure that we have the...
we got one more thing that I'm not happy with.
Okay.
Did you do the refactoring to the get reporter? I might have missed that. Yep. And then the next thing is on the API's verify. There's a place where you're taking a text file writer, but I actually want the interface to that instead.
Sorry, I didn't get this.
So the thing you're calling on line 217, if you go to that.
Yeah, that's the approval text writer, but we shouldn't
But
use
no,
it
no, no.
direct.
So go to the signature of the method you're going. So click into 217 verify. This, instead of taking an approval text writer, I just want you to take an approval writer.
Ah, okay.
You want to call this method?
No, I think it's just about signature.
It's just the signature on line 106.
To the verify method below.
I remove word text from approval text writer in line 106.
Sorry, this was too much now. I need one people guiding me, and
yeah, but Dimitri has it.
Yeah.
Yes, I said it, but I'm not allowed to. It's a problem of a format.
So tell it to Marco, and then have Marco say it again.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I get it correctly. So please, just Dimitri, repeat it, please.
Sure. So go to line 106 and look at the signature. Remove word text from the signature.
106.
Yes, word text between approval and writer. Between approval and writer. To the left.
It's a approval text writer, but it's
your...
just the approval writer. It's generalized, just only approval writer.
There.
No. In line 106, the type, the class name, approval writer instead of approval text writer.
That's what.
Yeah.
It's the more general form of the approval writer.
Ah, okay, I see.
Okay, I think that what Llewellyn wanted to have us. Okay, so
yes, that is exactly what I was trying to say. Okay, that's all I cared about in terms of this. Can we do a commit as well?
Okay, so please commit.
So if you open up the cat.
What did we done? What should we call our commit?
Oh, I guess that's okay. The commit message is going to start with a capital F. So pause the timer for a sec.
Oh, it's already over.
Yeah, or just stop it. Is this the what?
I was just asking if this was the pause, but I stopped it.
Yeah, let's just stop, but that's fine. So capital F bang bang, so 2 exclamation marks. So this is a feature that is more than 8 lines of code. And this is going to be added, or options with reporter constructor.
Is this F bang bang some standard? Is something?
Yeah. So this comes from Arlo Belshi. and he uses a Git notation. It's sort of like a Hungarian notation in Git. I've found it to be extremely valuable. So
Is that term I can just Google?
yeah, I would try Arlo Git notation. Probably would come up. Can you open up Chrome and just do the Google here, and we'll see if it.
Which Git notation?
Arlo, A-R-L-O. Yeah, the first one. So these are prefixes that are added based on what's happening. A lot of times you will see me using the lowercase letters, and these are things that are literally safe enough to do that I can redeploy to production without running my unit tests, right? And it's very useful to have a lot of commits with the lowercase letters. We're doing some bigger ones, but that's all right. Anyhow, there's one other thing that I forgot in the API that I want. So let's do that commit. That's fine.
I have one question about this notation. Like, if you're not changing something that affects the logic, and what is the point of sending it to production?
Oh, I mean, there can be huge points. I am actually, like, this is a little bit of a tangent, but like I'm good enough at provable refactorings. And for the sake of this crowd, let's just say only using the automated refactorings in IntelliJ, that I can almost completely transform an entire piece of code without changing the behavior. Things that are literally every line of code, you know, in a large section of the code base getting changed completely safely, put that to production and show that it has been safe, and then add a feature, which is more dangerous.
And adding one point there specifically, committing in the end might lead to putting something to production, but most importantly, it moves code to trunk. So if you have multiple developers working on the team, and if you just change the whole code base, you want them to see that as soon as possible and not in a week after they create.
Yeah, so that they don't step on each other's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing that's super valuable is there are a lot of things that I want to do that I can't use a lowercase r for. And so what will happen is I will have a lot of lowercase r's and then like a handful, like 3, 4 uppercase r's. And then when something goes wrong, it's very easy to troubleshoot where the problem occurred, right? And I work in a lot of tricky code bases. So like we had one part where the thing where our troubleshooting was basically a casting error, that because we cast things between ints and doubles, we got the correct mathematical result, but the wrong, like the computer result changed, so our test broke, right? And since we cared more about the math than we cared about like how computers handle floating point mathematics, like we were able to troubleshoot it quickly and then fix it. And that's something that can just be, you know, paralyzing otherwise. And that paralyzation stops you from being able to change the code. So if you actually look at the cat and look at our history, right, you will notice like as we go down, like, hey, look, we fixed a bug, added 2 features, 3 features, and then if I can grab that, like here we're adding features. Someone else is touching the mouse.
I was removing my mouse from the screen, so I do not take
okay,
it.
Thanks. So then we go down here, you'll notice lots of lowercase e stuff. That's me fixing like build stuff, environmental stuff. Lots of T's, those are adding tests, those are adding features. Those are dependabot, increasing my Maven dependencies. It doesn't know about my notation. Lots of E's here. This is me working on scripting stuff, right? But also you'll notice just there's so many things here, right? Like this is me adding a test, and notice like only at touching test file. So there's no way this can actually break production because this is not the code that goes to production, right?
So I understand it's basically a bit more complicated version of the conventional commits that are used, for example, by Angular.
The convention commits by who?
So Angular, the front-end system, introduced this commit structure which uses feat for feature, fix for fixes, refactors, also in the beginning of the message. And it's nowadays, it's called conventional commits. And there's a whole ecosystem around it where you can automatically create change logs based on that, because if you just have some change to your tooling, it should not appear in the change log. And there's even semantic versioning, which automatically determines which version your package should be using. So I'm using that a lot for my open source packages, because it means that when I do a change, I just push it, and my CI will automatically release the correct version based on the commits I have in there.
Most likely this is similar, but probably the size of the commits are much bigger.
Yes, they are potentially bigger because it doesn't have the so-called structure with the differentiating between a lot of lines and only few lines. That is different here. And that's definitely a disadvantage, because you need to look through more code compared to the system that you're using. The advantage is that you can create the change logs, because the text you use for the commits is already written with developer or developers reading about it in mind.
So if you're interested in this, this is a presentation of me doing the Gilded Rose kata. It's a 42-minute presentation, and I believe I do around 100 to 120 commits in that 42 minutes. All of them lowercase letters until the last 2 minutes when I add the new feature. Anyhow, thank you for letting me know about conventional commits. I will need to check into that more. There's one other thing that we need to do that isn't quite what was wanted. So can I give control back to someone?
I think it's my turn right now.
Turn? If you go to the signature for the verify, I actually don't want that to take a string. I want it to take an object.
So who's, I'm Marco, I'm typing.
Then I'm Daniel, I'm talking.
I'm Dimitri, I'm next.
Okay.
Okay, so let's change this to an object. I'm not sure I completely understood yet which one.
So on line 33.
So the options?
The
no,
verify that we're calling here.
Yeah.
Hello.
So the response should be an object?
No,
the signature should accept object instead of string, because string is an object.
String is an object. Yeah, sorry, I'm coming from JavaScript. In JavaScript, string is not an object, and that's why I was confused.
Okay, I got it.
So let's please go into the signature of this verify and change the response to an object.
And then you're going to have to turn that into a string on line 217.
Yeah, let's do that. Is it a toString or is it?
Yeah,
the quote plus
string.
is more robust.
Yeah, if you know how it works, just do it.
What should I do? Call object to
string? That's fine. To string with capital S.
Of response. No, doesn't work.
Object probably. Or
no static method to string.
Yes, objects with S after T could be.
Objects. Okay.
Or was it imported? Imported?
No, it's not.
Control
imported.
space. Oh no, it's object. Yes.
Java util objects. Did it do the import?
Yeah,
it looks like it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's run the test just to be sure.
Okay. The shortcut for rerunning was, I don't know.
Shift F10.
Shift F10. Okay. Yep.
That's good.
Nice.
So any other feature requests?
Yes. So I'd also like to be able to do my objects with the builder pattern. So we have an options and then add to the options with reporter. And I would like that to be a non-mutating builder pattern.
Okay, then this sounds like we should add a test for this first.
Yep.
So let's go to the tests. and just duplicate the test we already have to adapt it to what we need. And what I want to test is basically the same thing, just that we create the options with a builder pattern. And do we have some builder for anything there yet that we need to?
I want it straight on options. I want to be able to create an empty options and add a reporter to it.
Okay. So then in line 43, instead of creating a new options with a reporter, we create a new options without any arguments. And then
we name the test first. I think.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Let's call it verify with reporter
Rotate.
from options builder.
From options builder.
Rotate.
Yeah. Okay.
Daniel,
Rotate.
I think you're supposed to say you're typing.
So I'm Daniel, I'm typing.
Dimitri, I'm talking.
And I will be next.
And actually, could you please lowercase all method names, verify with reporter with capital V, and verify the reporter in options with capital V, and remove the test before, which is called name and which has no reason. Just move the comments out of the test, and then you can remove everything else and just keep the comments. Yes. Great, thank you. And now that's all right. And now let's modify and go to line 38. That's fine. 38. And now you want to have a builder pattern. And therefore, you want to say just new options builder. So add what builder. And create the class Alt Enter, I think. In quote package, if I got it right.
Package
for options. Yes, have a look at the options. Sure, I will find that.
The way I understood it was he meant to have the builder function on the options itself without a new options builder class, no?
I don't know, there are different patterns.
No, I want the options to be able to do a with reporter that returns a new.
Okay, you want builder as a static method inside the options, right?
Not static. I want to be able to modify, like I want to be able to chain, modify, and options.
I got it. So you don't want a separate builder, you want modifying builder directly on the options, right?
Exactly.
Because I thought unmodifiable, therefore. Okay, then get back to options.
No, yeah, unmodifiable, and that it gives you a new instance of options.
In this sense. Okay,
yes.
Now I got what you mean. So just create the constructor. That's fine. And get back and say to the test and add after parenthesis call of reporter.reporter and give reporter as an argument.
Shouldn't be called with reporter?
Well, it can. So what? It depends on product. There are different conventions.
I would like with reporter.
You would like with reporter.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So for consistency with my other APIs.
Yes, I know, but don't know your APIs. I know mutables and other stuff. With reporter was great. Just make it with reporter.
Just trying to figure out how I can just rename it.
There is no method. Just add with before reporter. And
I thought I had already implemented this. Yeah.
Yes, and then create the method. And let this method return a new reporter. New options, I'm sorry, which get this reporter as a parameter.
So rotate. All right, I'm assuming everyone else can hear the bell.
Yes, I think so, but semicolon
Okay.
is missing, and after it's added, I will rotate.
Not very loud, but yes.
We hear it through your microphone only.
Oh, really? Is that true? You don't hear
No,
it
I
through
hear
your
it
own.
directly.
Yes, I hear it all the time, actually. It's very nice to hear all the time.
Okay, I only hear it through Zoom.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I hear it really loud. I thought somebody's door was ringing. Like,
Okay.
Rotate.
So, Dimitri, I'm typing.
I'm Fred. I will be speaking.
Harald will be next.
Okay.
So what we want to do, you can add the semicolon.
Thank you so much.
And I guess I'm not sure why reporter got the type approval failure reporter spy. I think we should have the reporter type. Yes, approval failure reporter.
Yeah,
and
it will work.
I think then, yeah, we should modify the test. So now we've created the options with reporter, and yeah, no, I think this is fine. Yeah, you ran the test already, right?
Yeah.
So it's working. I guess, but I mean, does it actually make sense to have options without a reporter?
Yes.
Okay, so we should test that as well.
That's excellent. Yeah. What I would like is if you have options without the reporter, is it works the same as it used to.
Okay. So so let's write the test first. But the same as it used to. Do you mean
So
like that first test, the test that is selected?
yeah, this is going to get really tricky. So the way it works without it is it grabs the reporter from the annotation. So if you don't have a reporter specified, I want it to come from the annotation.
Okay.
Okay.
I am really not familiar with that annotation and then dot class thing, like what it does. And I need to pass the reporter somehow to the options for it to get picked up, or is that some kind of injection?
It is getting injected from the annotation, but don't worry about how it's happening yet. Let's write the test. Or well, let's do a commit and then let's write the test.
Okay, then let's do a commit. And actually, I need to look at the commit legend in Chromium first.
It's a new feature, so it's a capital F.
Okay, so
but no bang bang because it's only 2 lines.
Yeah, okay. So it's capital F without the exclamation marks. And options with reporter builder. Yeah, that's fine. You can commit. And then we should duplicate the test and remove the with reporter.
The time is over.
So I'm Fred. I will be typing.
Harald will be talking.
Kevin, I will be next.
Okay. Yeah,
so you're going to need to use the annotation to put your reporter there.
Oh, okay, yeah. So please duplicate the tests we're working on. Yeah. And paste it in there. Great. Let's call it verify without reporter from options builder. And yeah, in line 50, remove that part. And now add the annotation, line 47.5, add reporter, use reporter, yeah.
And you will need to use the test reporter for this one.
Test reporter, maybe dot class. Can you try?
Okay.
Let's have a look. Let's run the test. Okay, so now we have a failing test. It throws a null pointer exception. I guess this is what we
Because the empty reporter.
Get the reporter from the options, but there is none. Inside the verify method.
Suggest.
Shouldn't the stack trace point us? Yeah. Okay, could you jump? Yeah, let's go inside the verify method. Can you control click on the?
Yeah, control is not working for me, so.
Okay.
So you can make it so that if there is no reporter, when it asks for the reporter, it gets it in the traditional method. And approvals has a get reporter method on it.
Okay. Yeah, let's do an inline. I think the location was correct on the bottom. Let's do a null check on get reporter. We could, I guess we could do an inline check. Yeah, okay. Now I would extract it, but let's rotate. So it's Harald, I'm typing.
This is Kevin, I'm talking.
Gregor, I'm next.
All right, so let's start with rotating the timer.
Thanks for the reminder.
Then next, please go to options test and rename the method, the test method. Because you can remove the from options builder stuff, just verify without reporter. And then I'd like you to go to the options class, because now that I'm not a fan of null checks. So please go to the options class and replace the reporter with an optional auth reporter type. So the reporter field in line 5 shouldn't be of type approval failure reporter, but of type optional parameterized with approval failure reporter.
Oh no, I want it to return an approval failure reporter. I want it to return the reporter it would get from the stack trace when you ask for reporter.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Java. I just thought that having an optional in there would be better than using null checks.
I guess we could.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so should we go for it? Should we go for the null check?
Yeah, go for it. It's fine.
Okay.
I think the signature will be preserved either way, so it's fine.
Okay, so please replace or wrap the type with optional.
Okay, like this.
I think so. If I'm doing like basic Java mistakes, please correct me. And then in line 10, you probably have to create. You have to wrap the. No, actually, you get it. You also expect an optional, because this is the constructor that is invoked by the builder methods. It has to take everything. Also take an optional.
No, that changes the signature. That you can't do.
Yeah. So have two constructors instead, one without a parameter and one with, and wrap it in a sum and none.
Just make that optional off nullable reporter. inside the constructor in line 10.
All right, let's do that then.
I don't know how to do that.
So just write, like, it's a static method in optional of nullable, and you pass it reporter. So it's optional, like in uppercase of nullable.
Yeah, okay.
And you pass it to reporter. All right. Now we need to rotate. So this is Kevin. I'll be typing.
This is Gregor. I'll be talking.
This is Marco. I'm next.
Yeah. So did you start a timer? Yeah, you did. So please now, like, pass the optional of nullable to the field. Set it to the field and remove this old line. Exactly. And now for the get reporter, we can now just return this dot reporter dot.
You can't change that signature.
Reporter.
You can do the optional inside of the class, but not outside of the class.
Please go to line 18.
Then? Because then I still will have the null check in the at the call site.
No, so I want get reporter not to return null. I want it to return either the reporter you set or the one that would come from the traditional method.
So we can still use the optional inside, but it will just be replacing the null check. And so here
there is a method in optionals which allows you to do so. I think it's called or else or something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Here you can now say or else.
Or
and now
else get would even be probably better.
Let's. So can you please like keep it or else and just put in null for now. Yeah, and now run the tests. Okay, so now we got the test failing that we want to make work with the reporter that we are giving in the annotation. So somehow we need to, inside the options where I did the or else, we need to get there the reporter that we passed as an annotation. And I have no idea how this works.
It's as in line 200 of the previous file. You have seen the solution.
In which file?
Of approvals file, 200.
200, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You just copy and
copy
paste.
This, please, and go to the options. And here, instead of null, pass in the .get. Yes.
Yes.
And now run the test. And can you please run all the tests?
Oh, still fails.
Oh, at least all the tests in this class. And then let's rotate. This is Gregor, I'm typing.
This is Marco, I'm talking.
And this is Daniel, I'm next.
So why it is still failing? This is strange. If you create options with the empty constructor, could you please go back to the options? What is reporter in this case? Is it? Oh, so, it's still null. It's still null, and we do this reporter or else.
We have
should have to put a none in there. Is there something like an option none?
Yes.
So yeah, please sign it. Option empty, it's called in Java. Okay. Okay. So run the test, please, again. Still failing.
But failing for a different reason now.
Yes, what's the reason?
And that has to do with the fact that you have some dead code occurring in
the spy is still in there, but we don't need the spy anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should assert that the spy actually isn't called anymore. That could be a different test. But
you're not even passing the spy into your options.
Yeah, just remove the spy for this.
You
Yeah.
still need the assert if you're doing it this way.
Shit. Yeah, we need.
But you
we
don't
have
need the
spy
spy.
annotation, but we can remove line 51. Exactly. Yeah.
And the class test reporter has a static method to check if it's been called.
What is its name again?
We just
This one?
Test
Oh.
reporter? No, test reporter.
do we have? Can you take a look at our test reporter class, please?
Get last?
The class test our test reporter class, where we have created a spy. There's the static. And there is.
No,
So
this
what-
is not. This is not
No.
returning true.
It's not returning true. It's returning a string.
I have no idea how we can get the reporter from the annotation.
So this will give you the last text that it was passed.
Maybe we should just compare the strings, like hello and get last.
Try it.
Yeah.
Please also fix the label.
No. Oh wait. Hello doesn't equal hello. What does it mean?
This is really unfortunate.
Java pointers.
That's a different. It's the same content of the string, but not the same string object, right?
No,
Yes.
it's actually not the string. Same content is the problem. It's hello with a /n at the end.
It's the line break. Okay,
The
could you
line break.
please add the line break in the expectation? \n. Yeah. Oh, it's hard to see in this test reporting here from JUnit. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We did
Okay,
it.
so
Great.
I'm going to interrupt you for a bit because we're going to move to retro, but I want to do something in specific before we get there. So first I'll stop the timer. And then, all right, the cat down at the bottom, the GitHub cat. So I want to do the last commit. Can you say changes? Yep. And then, I'm going to dive for just a second here.
I have a bad feeling that we left the hello in there, but okay. It doesn't say anything.
I'm going to sign into here. Using.
You can probably easier do it with Control K or from IntelliJ.
Right,
code
but
command.
specifically what I want to show you right now is
Okay, got it.
how it feels different when we do this.
Then we need your credentials. Could you please
Yep,
spell your
I'm
credentials
getting
loud,
them.
out loud?
Yeah, I'll be sure to do that. And go here.
Oh.
Probably mistyped this. Try again. Okay. And now I probably have to close this and open it again. So the last changes we're going to do, summary is feature load default reporter if empty. So one of the nice things about this is the ability to add co-authors. So we're going to do this one at a time, but just put your GitHub ID. So we'll start with Harold. Oh, you need to put an @ in front of it, I think.
Okay, like this. I don't remember if it is with a dot or without. Does
And
it
then
show the right
Kevin?
one? Oh.
Yeah. So Kevin, can you put your GitHub ID? And then Gregor? And then Marco?
No, sorry.
Can you put your GitHub ID?
GitHub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Daniel?
Oh, wait, doesn't it? Yeah, now it's recognized.
And then Dimitri?
Somehow, there's a mouse. Let's come here again.
And Fred. And then say commit to master. And then you can actually push origin.
Does it put the co-authors in the comment, or where does it put it?
Yeah, so we'll actually see it here. I'm going to do a view on GitHub. So you'll see here, like, it tags it this way. And if you do the commit, you'll actually see it. It's added this way in the commit message in the description. Yeah.
But it gets interpreted by GitHub, so it knows that it's actually co-author and it connects.
Exactly. Okay. So GitHub is parsing that string, and it's just taking advantage of the fact that there's Git descriptions. However, the reason I want to do that is less of a technical thing and more of just an emotional thing. I noticed that commit probably felt different than our other commits. However, I think that commits are a very powerful thing when working as a mob, even if you're doing just a toy problem. Like, it feels like when you actually make each commit, it has an emotional reaction as well. So I just wanted to give that before we start our retro. So yeah, let's do that retro. I'm going to do a mind map retro, which is my favorite retro in general, but especially remotely. And we are doing what is called an observational retro, meaning a lot of times with retro, the purpose is to discover future action. That is not really the purpose of this one. This is just to recognize what has occurred in the last 2.5 hours of us working together. I'm just going to put in the middle of here, mobbing on approval tests. And so the first thing is all observations are going to be valid. I'm going to give you a starting structure, but this by no means is this something you have to adhere to. I just find it helpful for people. So we'll have some things around the tools. We'll have some things around the team. We'll have some things around the patterns. We'll have some things around motions. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a second. We have some things around the language, so around Java itself, and we have some things around the domain. Just because it's an easy place to start, what tools did we use today?
IntelliJ.
IntelliJ, the counter, the timer.
Mock timer.
Any disk.
Google Docs.
Cloud instance.
And mind map.
Zoom.
All right, throw them out. Any observations that you have? Anything that you observed in this time you're working together? The one thing I want to point out is emotions. So if you have felt any strong emotions in the last 2.5 hours, I want you to call them out. But emotions themselves are sort of useless to us, right? So the way emotions work is it's your subconscious alerting you that something important is going on, right? And the subconscious doesn't have a voice, so it alerts you through emotions. That's its bandwidth to communicate. But in and of itself, it's usually very misleading. So what we want is the emotion and what happened right before you felt the emotion, right? So like if I felt sad, like that's not helpful for us. But I felt sad when I didn't get my turn is different than I felt sad when we didn't write a test, right? Like in both of these two things, the emotion is keying you to pay attention to the event. So the emotion itself is not helpful. I need the emotion plus the event, and then we can actually engage in what's going on. But for everything else, any observation is fine. All right, give it to me. What do you got?
I can go first. I actually felt like pain, as in painful to watch in some occasions when it was not my turn. So errors that I probably would have made myself. But if you just watch and try not to speak up, it's painful.
Yeah. All right. What else we got?
So for me, there's two quite different observations. One just around tools. With AnyDesk, I had this zoom problem that not with zoom, but literally zooming in and seeing the screen, because the resolution on this thing was set for everyone the same. So maybe it worked better for people with bigger screens, but I'm at the moment holding this small laptop in my hands, and therefore had some problems there. So either something with bigger fonts or some way to do it separately, because it worked more or less to use a magnifier on my side, but it did cause some troubles where I then had to search for a tab or search around the code to find the next place to write.
So also, it's worth noting here that I set the resolution to 1900i, 1900p, something like that. That is not my native resolution. I have a 4K monitor, and if I didn't set that before I logged in to the instance, that problem would have occurred for every single person, right? So very often the first step I do in setting up the machine is change my own resolution before I remote desktop in. That's actually an interesting thing to mention as well. None of you use remote desktop, but the instructor, I need to, because without that, that cloud instance doesn't exist for you to any desk into. So I'm actually connected in a fundamentally different way than the rest of everyone else. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Give me more.
Oh, yeah. And so that's the tool part. And then emotions, for me, it was actually a bit of boredom between my turns. So for me, I felt that because I could not contribute at that time and I actively did not want to go into discussions, I felt that there were already a lot of discussions going on, that I then only when it was getting close to my turn, I started to look again, okay, what are we doing in detail? And following on based on that, where to go next.
most likely these are the same things. There are a lot of interesting studies that boredom is physically painful for people. One of the most fun studies for me on this one is this one. I'll put it in the doc so you can check it out later. I think it's like mind something, boredom, experiment. Let's see if I get this right. Say it again.
It's boredom, not boredom, boredom.
Oh, thank you.
Autocorrect accidentally. Oh.
Boredom.
With O.
This one. Ah, no, this one. Ah. All right. So this one here, somewhere around here, they have this product and they shock people with it, and then they leave them in a room and give him nothing else to do. And within 2 minutes, he will voluntarily shock himself because it is less painful to shock yourself than to be bored for 2 minutes. It's an amazing video.
Anyway, I'd like to point out that the pain that I was like alluding to was different from boredom, basically the exact opposite. I was trying to stay engaged, and this is how I really noticed all the things that I would do differently, but I wasn't allowed to express it, and I wasn't allowed to actually do it. So either you get away from it and you're bored, or you try to stay engaged, and then it feels awkward.
Hard to be patient.
Yeah, it's hard to be patient then.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and that is a skill that I'm still very bad at, even with a lot of practice. Like, what else did you observe?
Maybe one question in relation to this, which is not really a notion, but just something that went through my mind, especially on those occasions. Like, aren't you with that, like, probably a mob is usually smaller than today's mob, but aren't you introducing a lot of issues and iterations into the process if you don't say, like, you should do it that way because we have to refactor that anyway? Because there were a lot of situations or occasions, right, today where like small comments could have made us faster, I guess.
Yeah. So that I'm really glad you brought this up. I'm not trying to have you guys be fast right now. You are 7 people who haven't worked together before, who are trying to work. Like, I'm trying to get you to work together right now, right? Speed comes later, right? And in my experience, it usually comes somewhere in around the 16-hour mark, where, so like if you were doing this as a team, by day 2, you would be ahead, right? We did it for 2 hours. Like, we're behind because we're learning how to work together. And so that, like, this not saying the right thing, I'm doing that in spades, right? Because like this is my project. I know how to do this. That's not what's important right now. What's important is everyone learning to work together, right? So you're right. It can go faster in the 2-hour period by doing those hints, but it goes slower, in a week by doing that. Another thing is so something that happened, and I'm going to put this under team, and I think this was Gregor, but I'm not sure, but like I made Gregor wait. I forget what I made you wait on, Gregor. Do you remember?
Was it about the design decision I proposed to refactor the array. Do you mean that, or?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah. So there's two things on there. One is, as a facilitator, I'm doing two things. One is I don't want you to keep changing your design decisions without completing them, right? Because that ends up being a horrible experience. So there's a concept in improv called yes and, right? And we're trying to do that in the mob as well. However, equally bad would be if I didn't go back and have Gregor do the idea when it's done. If I didn't have him do it later, what do I promote then? Right? Then I'm promoting don't speak up. Right? So I definitely want, and this is also why we did the voting. You saw multiple places where we did voting on which answer we like. Right? That's trying to encourage the same thing. I want all the voices in the group to get heard. We'll talk about that a little bit when we do the thing before. But yeah. All right, continue on. What else did you observe?
Well, I'd like to say about my motion, because actually I needed to stop me from thinking, because not telling a meta thing, which I actually wanted to tell from the very beginning, because in the mob retreat concept, we also have very similar first round where there is a strong navigation. There is, however, there is one very important distinction, because in our introduction, we encourage Navigator to ask for support from mob anytime Navigator wants to do so, and allow people to talk. And then all the differences in knowledge are become not a problem for the Navigator, because Navigator, who is not as knowledgeable as some other guys, can ask for help and get help and totally controls the whole procedure. Navigator is allowed to do whatever Navigator wants, including asking for help. And this makes the problem of knowledge and guides not being allowed to participate less, because then Navigator can estimate what is the right thing to do, to ask or to go.
So yeah, so that's a good point. Oh, sorry, keep going.
Sorry, I think we still did this, not at the start, but a little bit later. It just happened, and it makes sense.
Yes, sure. But here it's explicitly explained that it's a good thing to admit that you as a navigator are lacking knowledge in some particular area, being honest and being welcoming to the mob, asking for support. So it's one of the intentions of this first round in mob retreat preparation. And I think it makes people give support each other from very beginning in being part of the whole, even if the navigator still keeps the full control over how it works and
So
what is going.
the short answer is yes, but so I use that as well. And one of the real advantages of sort of opening that up is it creates safety, right? So if you have people who are really nervous, opening that up is good. But there are a downside to that safety as well, right? Which is it creates safety if you are fearful that you don't know what's going on, right? Because now you can just sort of ask for help and sort of almost sidestep your turn, right? By asking for help. What it doesn't do, and in fact what it can reinforce, is removing the safety that it's okay not to know. That you might actually, like, that you can try and fail, as opposed to I can just give up my try. So there's two reasons I didn't do that here. First of all, given the group of people that I had, I was like, I think they're gonna, like, we never had a time where we were just super stuck. I also didn't see any reactions on people that were like, I am really nervous to do this. And probably that's because self-selection. if you were really nervous to do this, you probably wouldn't have shown up for this meeting anyways, right? Like so like. However, that's not always true when I'm in a group, depending on how I pick them, or if I'm in like a company, I might have someone who is really afraid, and in that case, it is absolutely the wrong thing to do what I just did, right? And I've made that mistake before too. Even if they succeed, the fear can be overwhelming and you have to unpractice. So you really have the crowd. And the way I think of fear is like spice in a meal, right? Like you want a little bit of fear because it actually keeps you like aware and alert. But you don't want so much that it causes pain, right? That will actually just shut you down. So if that if that fear gets too big, then this is absolutely critical that you allow people that out. But otherwise, I can actually create a safer environment by saying, you know, it's okay that you might get up here and do the absolute wrong thing or nothing for 3 minutes, and that's okay. That is very much a judgment call in the moment of what you're doing. But yeah. Other things you observed? Oh, actually, let me do a quick check-in. We are at time, but I don't feel like we're done. Are people okay going a little bit long? Okay. All right. Then let's go until we get whatever we have out.
I have one comment related to what you just said. So it would be in category team.
Yep.
I've noticed that there are basically two modes the typist operates in. Either the typist knows what's going on, and then basically all the comments of the talker are like only intentional, like only descriptions of the intent. And then the typist knows, it's like, then it's actually like pairing. So the two of them know what they are doing, and it's just like in pair programming, the talker is basically aware of the bigger picture. And there is this other mode that basically starts that you can see when the talker first time uses that location thing. It is when the typist actually loses track of what's going on, and then as soon as the typist, as soon as the talker then says at this location, at this line, do this and that, then the typist just basically leans back and I have no idea what's going on. You have to tell me like every keystroke from now on, and then it gets very unproductive. Is there a way to not fall into this trap?
Unproductive is a. I want to just be really clear on that word. When that occurs, what's usually happening is the rate that you're producing code slows way down. But the rate in which the typist is starting to actually understand what's occurring is actually going up. Or so you've shifted mode from we are trying to code something to we are trying to make sure people are on the same page and actually understand. And if you do this like the
I can attest to that because at the beginning I had absolutely no clue what we were doing, and just by being told you need to do this and that, I kind of a little bit got into the flow.
And that is also true if people don't know the language, which can be the case, or don't know pieces of the language. Definitely if you don't know the domain, which is basically all the time for me, right? Because I'm always coming into new teams. But for all of you today, like this was new domain. There was one part, one of my notes here was Dimitri said, like, I don't know your API, which that would make total sense because you haven't used it. But it didn't really prevent us from getting what we needed, right? Whereas, like you can imagine, if I gave you these tasks and just sent you on your own, there's almost no chance you could have done something that I committed that to master branch, right? Like there's almost no chance that would have happened in 2.5 hours if I just said, hey, here's the repo, go.
So
Other things? Oh, no, sorry, go on.
I mean, to that point as well, I think despite that none of us know each other or have worked with each other before, I think we've done a very good job at communicating. Sometimes it was a bit funny because it was bumpy, but we always recovered well from that. And I think I think the group of people is absolutely awesome because of this, that we didn't let communication derail into a very bumpy road, and instead we recovered every time we had a misunderstanding or a disagreement. So I think this is I think this is just a great group of people in that sense. And like a lot of people talked about boredom, and I didn't feel bored at all. At the beginning, after you introduced everything, I thought I was going to be really bored. And I started thinking of, okay, maybe I should get out now. But actually, I stayed like super like engaged the whole time. And I actually think that maybe the timer should have been a bit longer. Because switching tasks too often was like didn't give people the chance to achieve what they wanted. But other than that, yeah, I think this is my only point.
That is a really common observation. It's probably the opposite. I probably should have made the timer shorter.
Okay.
But the reason that when you said like you're worried about engagement, the reason for that is, again, it's 20 minutes between you coming back to the keyboard, right? Or I guess 7 people, 3 minutes, yeah, 21 minutes. That is the thing that is really pushing on the engagement. Another thing, like timer related here, there was a time where the timer was on the wrong turn, right? And it didn't matter. Which, by the way, is freaking amazing. I have just this concept of calling talker typer next. This is something that I've only learned last week, despite doing over 1,500 mobs live and in the neighborhood of around 20 to 30 remote.
Wow.
Yeah.
A huge compliment. It was one of the major learnings of mine today, you know, how smoothly it works, because it eliminates all the problems with I'm next, and how you replace the word, because navigator is just hard to say, right? And type and talking next is very smooth, it's very easy, it's easy going, I loved it actually.
Yeah, and I was so internally I was just so excited when even when it was saying the wrong name, it didn't matter. Like everybody here, they knew what was going on, they knew where they were. Like that was awesome. I was so happy with that. Yeah, so in the real world, you get this for free because there's physical chairs that you're moving around, and this is just how to get it here. Other observations?
Yes. Actually, you talked about fear, and there was one situation when I had a little bit of fear. It was when I saw your code base the first time. It was like, wow, we now need to understand a completely unknown code base to us. And for me, even in a language I'm not used to. So this created a little bit of fear. So can we really understand this code base? And it's quite unusual because normally when we do cutters and dojos, we start with a fresh code base. So this is, or we do a legacy code retreat, but then it's a well-known problem like the gilded rows or whatever. But in this case, it was a really unknown code, and you said it's a production code base, so more pressure over there.
So fear is usually a survival thing, saying like, oh, something dangerous is about to happen, right? Fear actually is an interesting emotion as it works in 2 different modes. One usually is not identified as fear. So like if someone is in a burning house, they will usually say something to, I didn't really become afraid until I got out of the house, right? So when fear actually hits, if you are in immediate danger, it puts it gives you a whole bunch of stuff to get out of immediate danger. However, the moment you are actually out of immediate danger, it switches to help you never get into danger again. Right? So Fizz mode, when you're not in immediate danger, is not to get back into immediate danger, and when you are in immediate danger, is to survive. So that's probably what happened, is that anxiety of, holy crap, what's going to happen? How do I protect myself in here?
So how did that develop over time for you, Marco?
You did what? Sorry?
How did it develop? Was it only in the beginning, the fear of the unknown code base, or was there a surprise? Or
Yes, I think it got away pretty fast as soon as we start working on it and see, okay, we can actually look at the code base and see what's happening in there. It's not that complicated, and then it got away pretty fast, but only when we actually did something with it, not just looking at it.
I guess it was also because it's well tested. You just stick to the TDD pattern.
And there's safety in numbers, right? So you're not here by yourself. You've got all of us.
This is something I kind of, so I mean, maybe as a navigator, I should have asked for support, but I didn't. And that's mainly my fault, I think. But maybe I expected people to jump in and criticize a decision that I'm about to make or that I'm making, so that I don't go down that path and then the next navigator has to undo what I just did. And so I think this is a bit related to what we talked about earlier with that the navigator is allowed to ask for support or do anything in general.
Other observations?
One question with regards to the time, the timer.
Yeah.
I've observed that there were, I think, 2 occasions where I actually stopped the timer in order to explain more things.
Yeah.
And then also I noticed that some of the decisions that were made within those 3 minutes were not really justified. They might have been justified for the talker himself, but not to the group. So people actually didn't know why what the reason was for this decision, and you also don't have the time to explain it.
Yeah.
Now I understand that you should minimize the amount of time between getting to the keyboard in order for you to stay engaged. But at the same time, if you would even reduce it, this would be even more of a problem. So do you just in that sense, could you in each turn or once each round make a pause and think, or how do you usually tackle this?
Actually, so I'm purposely not making you justify your decisions. First of all, not everyone is good at justifying their decisions, and I don't want us not to do a decision because you can't articulate it well. Does that make sense? What I want is, if we have conflict on the different ways for us to do it, after we've done both of them, we vote. Right?
Okay.
So I want people to be, I want you to be able to give things that are not easy for you to justify, and this is kind of counterintuitive, I want you to be able to give stupid things. That's okay. You doing a stupid idea and then us realizing it's a stupid idea is a win. And it's usually a quicker win than you justifying why the stupid idea. There's a lot of times where I've seen people argue over stuff, and I'll be like, we're just going to do both of them, and neither of them work. So, what were we arguing over?
So the idea to fail fast and learn.
Fail fast, exactly.
I in my experience, also having an environment where every decision has to be articulated and justified becomes very, very toxic very quickly.
Yes.
And that's not what we want. We want to be able to include more people, not keep certain people away from each other.
But then again, it's probably also important to realize when the group is actually at a point where you have to make that decision. Like when you said, okay, with that, how we should do that class, then we actually stopped the timer, figured out what the alternatives are. And at this point, probably we could have done a little bit more discussion, because I think that maybe that was just, that's wrong, but I thought that not everyone in the group actually knew what the reasons for each of the, like the reasoning behind each of the alternatives was. So it was basically like a gut decision, whether it's an inner class or an external class. There is,
oh yeah,
justifiable.
And so okay, so there's two things there. Like the correct answer was it should have been an external class. It's okay that you didn't choose that. Over time, you will, right? Because what will happen is over time we will have multiple tests in different places that need to do like this. This pattern of being able to get to the reporter is going to be important. But let's say that like you had overwhelmingly voted for the anonymous class, right? Like that would have been the worst of the options, but it would have been fine. The only thing that would have changed is when you wrote the second test, you probably would have revisited that decision, right? So it would have taken a little longer. Not a problem, right? Like you don't need to choose the right answer.
But
if you choose the, go ahead.
I think the problem is rather the opposite, because I've seen a lot of code bases where classes that are only used at one specific location have created in order to like refactor stuff nicely. And this is why I'm like was like asking this question in the first place. And if you do decisions like this, which a lot of people make, because everybody learns like in the first hour when you do programming, after you discover what a function is, you start writing functions for everything, even if you only use it once, just because you think it looks nicely. If you do this in the mob, then you will not refactor it, because while if you start out with an anonymous function, you will realize that you need it more often, and then you start factoring it out. If you start with a factored out version, it just becomes a messy code base.
My experience is the opposite. My experience is in the mob, there's a much higher chance you're going to refactor something that you are unhappy with. And what I've experienced when you make a decision is one of two things. Either it really doesn't matter what choice you chose, in which case you just take what the group likes and you move on, and it just doesn't matter. Or it does matter, in which case you either chose the right answer or it will come back and hurt you again, and you will be in this discussion again. So you might be delaying getting to the right answer, but that's okay. Like this is where the team is. And this is what I mean by, especially in the beginning, but this is true like universally, you're going to do better by by focusing on getting the team together rather than getting the right answer. Does that make sense? And yeah.
Follow-up question on that, because to be honest, I fully agree with Kevin on these points due to two things. One being that Dimitri during the session made some arguments for using the class instead of anonymous, and you also now made some arguments, and I fully agree with all of these arguments, and I still would actually go with would have gone with the anonymous class in that specific situation. And so I'm not, and that's.
Oh no, you would have. Would you like to refactor right now to an anonymous class for the 3 tests?
No, but that's my point. That so.
But my point is, we would get to the same place regardless. We would just take different paths. And I'm less concerned about taking the quickest path.
Yeah, but that's not not my point that I wanted to aim for. My question is, there are actually some other things that I would now refactor based on the knowledge.
Oh, very hopefully.
But I would not know how to bring this into the mob, because I feel like if I bring it up while I'm the one speaking, then I disrupt the flow because we're at the moment working on something else. But if I'm not the one speaking, then I'm disrupting the flow because I'm not the one speaking. So my question is, when do you bring in these ideas into the mob?
So there's 2 places. A big one, remember we would stop the timer. Where did that go? So the stop timer is happening in two places. One is like on confusion, right? So this is sometimes that we just need to talk about things and stop the timer and let's talk, right? This happened last week for me where we introduced lambdas and no one was familiar with lambdas. And so we just paused and we dissected what are the pieces of a lambda and how do they work, right? And it just, that team wasn't familiar. We just needed to pause what we're doing and talk. The other time is on task, right? So you'll notice we stopped the timer when we loaded a new story. And if we're not happy with the story being completed, if we're like, this works, but we need to clean up this, that is an excellent time to be like, wait, we're not ready to, our next task is not build a new story. It's let's look at cleaning up this thing.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
This is actually
But
not
I'm sorry. I'm trying to put my question.
No.
Actually, for me, I was not aware of who has started the discussion and particularly voting, because probably you have done it as a facilitator, because I don't think it could have come from one of the navigating or from the mob.
No.
So, but then usually there is no facilitator. Usually there is just mob. And then if we have a situation and with strong navigator, then I would not expect any voting. And for me, it was kind of non-linearity, you know, something I cannot explain, something unclear.
Okay, so there's two parts of that.
How it
Let's
comes.
start with the team, right? So we had a facilitator. I recommend you always have a facilitator. Even if the facilitator is partaking in the mob, have somebody who's sort of wearing the hat of watching out for facilitation. The original mob from Hunter with Woody was the facilitator for 4 years of them doing it 40 hours a week, right? And like if you watch that original 3-minute video, you'll see it like on the side. It'll be like Woody, a manager, not doing real work, right? Like what he was actually doing was facilitating. We didn't even realize it, right? For many years, but like he was the one who would call out for the team when they were in a rat hole, or help them come to a decision when they were stuck, or like bring clarification or go get people when he's like, oh, the product owner isn't here and they need to be. He was the one who led the retrospectives. Like having a facilitator is a super good idea in a mob, even if it's just a hat one person is wearing. But having someone who's like, for this round, I am going to take the role of facilitating either solely or as well. And definitely with a new... Yeah.
For me, facilitating is kind of breaking rules, because the rules are there is person talking, and the person who is talking also makes all decisions. So there's absolutely no way to have voting, no way to have time stop, no way. And then there is a facilitator who is just breaking the rules at any time.
I think
but we were also breaking the rules. So
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what I saw is, which was also a little bit painful. I believe that we also kind of sometimes broke the rules by like jumping in and overruling navigator and stuff. And I think for these situations, a facilitator is absolutely necessary if it gets out of hand.
Yes, I agree. And I think that one of the things that caused us to go this way was that we did not establish a culture where the navigator can take a vote or can go and get support from everybody else. And I think that's why we were reluctant to do that as navigators. But I don't think in general in a team you want to establish the culture that, okay, you can ask, you can take a vote, let's discuss. And it's initiated by the navigator, and you want to have to teach the navigators, or to teach the people to be navigators that ask questions and call for votes, instead of having people jump in and interrupt navigators all the time. So I think the first type of culture is the better one. And even if it takes a bit of time in a team and you have to teach or maybe talk to people in private after the mob session and say, hey, maybe it would have been a good idea if you called the vote during that problem or that question and so on.
Well, this place just advertise mock retreat. The second session has name navigator is a chairman, and then is just explicitly the way to learn this role, being a chairman of the mob. And
it's very hard
all
to
the
swap
voting.
your your facilitator that frequently.
Yeah.
At the very least, I would suggest a designated facilitator for the whole session. You know, if not multiple. Like there's a skill set involved in navigation, and it requires a very different part of the brain that you're handling fluently. Switching that is really hard on Navigator. However, there's. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Confusing the
Would you,
terms.
sorry.
Have you tried rotating a facilitator?
We have rotated on session, but not rotating in the middle.
If you said somebody of the people involved in the mob has the hat on as a facilitator, does this
Yeah, we have had that.
does this person still participate in the mob actively, or just is he or
We've-
she put aside for some time?
We've done both. We've done both.
Okay, which one is better?
I prefer not participating while facilitating, but because the motivations are really, they pull in different directions, right? And so the facilitator, it is better when they can pay attention to much more of the people stuff. You mentioned rules, but I prefer to think of these more as guidelines. So sometimes as a facilitator, your job is to enforce the rules because and other times your job is to relax the rules, right? And so you're always trying to figure out like where is the team working and do they need more discipline at this time or do they need more space at this time? But you're right. The facilitator is the one who is like sort of establishing when it's okay to break the rules, and the facilitator is very often breaking the rules. Yeah.
And here, so actually, for me, there is a tension between the team and the facilitator, because the facilitator is not a neutral moderator, but also has own ideas about the code base, you know?
Yeah, so we had actually two roles occurring here. We also had product owner.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, I was both. Which again, like that tension that you're describing, wouldn't it be nicer if we had a separate product owner than a facilitator? That's the same reason I want a separate facilitator than a mobber. Right? Is that tension?
And then actually I wanted to, they have Marco has told that the fear or uncertainty on safety has decreased and safety has increased. And maybe because of the culture that making that failure is okay. It was maybe one of the parts why confidence has increased after seeing that, well, nobody needs to be perfect here.
Yeah. And that is super valuable. Other things that you observed?
I just wanted to add something to the discussion we had before. There were too many people speaking at the same time, so sorry for that.
No worries.
I just want to share my observation we have in our current project where we also do mob programming. I think I've never seen a team so obsessed for doing refactoring all the time and having such a clean code base and getting rid of technical depth than we did in the mob. So I think it really enforces the quality thinking. That is what happened in this project.
And like to add on Sorry.
So, sorry, maybe we have just 3-minute rotations, and I think the bigger is the size of the team, the shorter rotations it can survive. We have told it, but I'm not reading it here. I think it's important thing we have really felt, because usually I would say a team of more of a 5-person is potentially a little bit too big, but with 3-minute rotations, it was kind of okay.
Yeah. So okay. So team size here is the issue, and again, this is a time between keyboard. Which, by the way, everyone got about what, 4 or 5 times to get to the keyboard? Am I remembering right?
I think so.
At least, yes.
And you're right. When I have smaller teams, I can expand my time bigger. There's an interesting thing though. Like, if you let's say we have 7 people and we have 70 minutes, right? And I rotate you on a 10-minute timer, which is insanely long. I do not recommend that.
Yep.
Each of you would get 10 minutes at the keyboard. And if I did it at a 5-minute timer, each of you would get 10 minutes at the keyboard. And if I did it at a 1-minute timer, each of you would get 10 minutes at the keyboard. Right? So an interesting aspect is the rotation is much more about the number of iterations you get as opposed to the amount of time you get. And I find more iterations is really important. And the time is the same either way.
At the same time, I thought that 3 minutes are not enough, because almost no round has been stopped after 3 minutes. And I think if so, maybe it was just too short to be followed. Otherwise, we could enforce it, but 3 minutes were not enforceable.
That's an excellent thing I want to point out. Thank you. Not done at timer. So there's a saying that we often use in mobbing, which is like, it's okay not to be done. And that there's 2 ways that this applies. And the first one is, it's okay not to be done when the timer goes out. Like, it's okay to be mid-typing when the timer goes off, and the next person will be able to continue that. But it also goes to, you're not done with the problem, and it's time to retro. And that's okay, too. Very often, you want that feeling of accomplishment, and that desire for that feeling of accomplishment actually gets in the way of flow. And so that there's a slightly different thing between flow and accomplishment.
One more.
But actually, we were not done, but just not rotating a timer.
Yeah, so that is also good. So I want to point that out, because this is a facilitation thing. So this is on the bell. So in the beginning, right, I always said rotate. After I think about the first round of this, maybe the second round, I started letting the bell ring more, right? So like on the second to third. And I'm doing that because I'm trying to, like, in the beginning, I'm facilitating and I'm trying to enforce rules. And now I'm trying to pull back and let you enforce your own rules. But sometimes the bell rang too many times and I have to, okay, now I need to step in again, right? But it's just an interesting, like, part of what you're doing on facilitation, and you'll notice this is part of my facilitation style in general. And this is not the only facilitation style, and there are wonderful facilitators who use very different styles. But for me, I have a tendency to, in the beginning, put a lot more structure, and then pull that structure back as people are doing what I sort of want them to do. Related to this is affirmations. I'm not sure if I'm spelling that right. But you will notice that every time you did something that I wanted you to do, I had a tendency to like give some small piece of praise, like yay or good, or like every time your team does something you want them to do, give positive reinforcement that that is good. That is a very powerful tool.
One observation on the setting. I think this short time intervals were only possible because we have a pretty fast way of switching. Normally, when we do remote mob programming, we have much bigger switch intervals because everybody works in his own machine, and we use Git doing a commit, next one do a switch of the screen share and Zoom, and the next one gets up, does a pull on the current branch and continue from there. So the time between the switches is much larger, much larger overhead there.
And that is really being facilitated by AnyDesk and the cloud computer. So in terms of the cloud, did anybody have latency?
No, actually, that was one thing I want to say. It was blazingly fast. Like it felt like working on my own computer. It was really fast.
So do you do the same thing in production environments, or is this just for training, for mob tryouts?
So production environments. The answer to this is simply it really depends on the company. Because what you are discussing is not a technical problem, but a policy problem. I really.
If you have the option to do it, would you prefer to do it this way?
I do. If I have the option, I really prefer this. But there are some other things that might be in play depending. So, for example, if I need to connect to like an internal mainframe or something to do things, I might prefer. I still like doing AnyDesk, but I might have a physical computer in the office that we go to. But I actually really like this. It's fast. It takes advantage of EC2 pipes. Any one of us can have connection problems, and it doesn't take out the group. Likewise, it's much less likely Amazon's going to go down than your company internet, right? Like.
I mean, there's a different price on this. The price on this is thing that you take a little bit away of your personal freedom. So not everybody can choose their own IDE, their own keyboard layout, their own machine installation, and the way how they work. So.
So there's so much interesting in that. So let's bring that up. So consistent environment. So this is I spelled environment wrong. I probably spelled a lot of things wrong on this page. This has, and I think of this as an advantage, but we haven't really put anything under IntelliJ yet or language. But one of the things I notice is because of that consistent environment, one of the things that really spreads along is tooling. And I noticed that even in these 2 hours that you worked together, the way you used IntelliJ normalized a lot and grew a lot, right? Like a lot of people use things that they didn't know about in the beginning. And that's partly because we get to see each other use it. Again, last week I was working in the C# world, and we used a couple things. We used a ReSharper, which is also by JetBrains. We also used something called nCrunch, which is a continuous test runner. And in the beginning, everyone was like, "What are all these things that I'm not used to?" And at the end of them, they were literally asking their manager to buy them for them so they could use it at work. Right? So that understanding of tool expertise is amazing. Speaking of which, Alt insert for create test. That was new to me, and I really liked it.
Yeah, you can also create a lot of insert a lot of other things with Alt insert.
Yeah.
And actually, this is also something I think it's only for keyboard shortcuts where it can be a bit cut short. So, for example, for me, I'm using also WebStorm, so I'm familiar with the IntelliJ thing, but I have set up my keyboard shortcuts completely differently. So I have basically directly below most of my fingers in the middle row, I have inline refactor, move, rename, all of the things that I use all the time. And now today I was actually doing most of this with the mouse, just because it was faster for me to find it in the menu than to figure out what keyboard combination it is.
Yeah,
so,
and that's definitely the case in the beginning. If you're on a team that is like a production team, that will normalize within a week. But it does normalize. I find that teams customization of environments usually goes away in teams that do this. In the same way as like in a city that where everyone lives together, there tends to be an accent that forms for the entire city, right? Like people who are actually working very closely together just normalize a way of doing it because it's harder to be different.
And that's quite interesting because actually at my last company, we had 4 developers with 4 different keyboard setups. So Mac, Linux on Mac, English layout, German layout, and Comac layout, so 5 different ones actually. And then one way to normalize it would be to force everyone to use the same keyboard layout and not use Mac, for example.
So interestingly,
what do you see happening?
Here, the AnyDesk takes away some of the keyboard layout problem. Like I am using Mac, and everyone had different key. I'm assuming you're in Europe, so I'm assuming that there are quite a lot of different keyboard layouts at play here. But because of the way AnyDesk interfaces, it kind of abstracts that part away. Although there is AnyDesk, one of the things that is still very frustrating for me is the modifier keys seem to only sometimes work.
We had a team once where we used Bluebits for everything. So this is a remote IDE connector. So you can one person use VI, the next one use IntelliJ, and you can connect just the IDE. So this get rid of the different machine issues.
But that has the disadvantage of learning the tooling, right? Because now you're not going to see other people's shortcuts.
Everybody just used their own tooling and specialized in their own tooling. So they didn't need to learn something new. They could use what they're used to, like VI or Emacs or whatever.
I just want to capture that. Didn't need to learn something new.
I mean, I have a colleague. He's pretty awesome in VI. I mean, he can do amazing stuff in VI. He presses some keys and it does reformat stuff. It's incredible. I never went to a level where I can do something like this.
So if you did this, you would get to that level. If you were using VI as your thing and mobbing with him, you would get to that level. And remarkably shortly is the interesting aspect to me. Like the amount of knowledge that transfers in a mob is enough that I can go into languages I don't use and sort of pick them up remarkably quickly, like within a week and a half.
I completely agree. The problem is in our situation, it was more like the rest of the team would wanted to use WebStorm and not VI. So he was forced to also use WebStorm, which he didn't want to do. So it's more of a political issue, you could say.
So the same thing about trying both is a good way to solve that problem. So do a week of WebStorm and then do a week of VI and then vote. And
he would still
probably
be unhappy.
Oh, he would probably be unhappy because probably they will not go to VI.
Yeah.
But probably he would be happier that you were willing to try it for a week and make it because you still didn't like it. And possibly he would be happier because, I mean, so like at Strange Loop, we would do a thing where we do new languages and I would facilitate the mob, but I didn't even know the languages, so I would work with someone who knew the languages. It was Strange Loop, so it's often a writer or a committer on the language, right? And so like we're doing Idris, and I don't know how to do Idris, but I know how to facilitate a mob, and the guy wrote Idris, so he knows how to do Idris. one of the things I discovered right away is, so I would be like, I'd go to the person who was the expert and say, can you bring a laptop with an environment that works? And the first year I did this, basically every single person brought VI. And basically everybody hates VI, right? Because there's only two types of people. There are people who use VI and people who don't use VI. And if you don't use VI, you hate VI because you don't use it. And if you do use VI, you hate your VI because it's not my VI, right? Like there's a very customizable environment. And so what ended up happening is we spent a significant portion of the project learning VI, right? Or learning this person's VI. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when you only have 2 hours, like we really wanted to focus more on the language. And so next year I started, you had to have some sort of like VS Code or TextMate or something that's not VI or Emacs, because that's not what the thing was about. But again, so it's possible that if he saw the rest of the team using VI for a week, he would have been like, VI is great when I use it, but I don't want to see those suckers using it anymore. Like, let's get to WebStorm. And then you have a greater appreciation of why you're there, right? In a way that a discussion never ends up with the same result of trying something and then deciding.
Makes sense.
Llewellyn,
Yeah.
did you ever play around with the different keyboard settings? There is by default, AnyDesk uses automatic translation, and there's also one.
I have. Automatic seems to work the best, but I don't have good, when I tried doing the other ones, it worked worse. But I don't understand the other ones enough to, so I could be very wrong on that. I just, out of the box, automatic seemed to have the least problems. However, so I use Dvorak, so my keyboard is blank, right? And I have one that isn't blank, so that when I'm on any desk, I can actually do the control things and actually use it, right? Because I can never, when I have to hit Control C or something and it no longer is where I expect the C to be, I just I'm also incapacitated. But yeah, the keyboard part it could be smoother.
Marco, you mentioned a tool that connects from VI to an IDE.
Fluebits, it's called.
Fluebit.
FLOO bits.
Okay, I'll check it out.
FLWO bits. Did I do that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And there's a couple others we collected a list at one of the last mob programming thingies.
Just send you the URL in the chat. Right. Let's see, where's the chat? Over there. Okay, there is Fluebit. Sure.
Shall we put the links in the Google Doc?
Yeah, that would be great.
I can paste it. And or maybe also the MindMob link.
So one thing that also hasn't come up that I want to mention is this would have been under patterns. Attention to type signatures. I'm not sure it's better. But I noticed that in the beginning, when you would create your methods and stuff, you basically weren't paying attention at all to what was getting passed in or not. And by the end of the time, you were, right? And I thought that was fantastic, right? The attention to what is the API you're creating. In the beginning, you're so overwhelmed by just everything else. You're like, what? It works, happy. And then within 2 hours, you're like, wait, am I actually creating what I want it to look like? And I did super happy with that. Language-wise, we also had optional, which was nice to see from the Haskell world. So I have no idea from the domain wise what's there, but I assume that like a lot of you had a lot of things you observed in the domain because you started getting much quicker and fluent as we went.
Yeah, probably one thing to note there is that a little bit more introduction in terms of how this thing actually works would have helped, I guess. Because in the beginning, we really were completely clueless what this actually does.
Yeah, so
Again.
this is another thing that gets brought up all the time. Most likely that's not the case. Most likely it would have taken me more time to do an introduction of how this works than it took you to actually learn it by just doing it. What you're probably reacting to is the comfort you felt while you learned to do it. Right. So you probably would have been more comfortable, but it probably would have taken more time to achieve less than just jumping in and doing it.
Yeah,
depends on complexity. In this case, it was just fair enough to start with what we have been given so far, but there are domains where it would not work so smoothly.
So, okay, that's another excellent thing to bring up. I purposely started with a simple problem. One of the things I see done wrong the most in mobbing is people taking not only not a simple problem, but usually their hardest problem. So like I love teams that are like, oh man, we've been meaning to refactor this class for years. Let's do that as our first mob. I'm like, oh, this thing you haven't been able to do for years, we're going to try to do in an hour or two. And if it doesn't work, will you say the problem is like we did this really hard problem, or is it the way we attack the problem? And so, in the beginning, we are trying to learn to work together. And so I am purposely choosing easier problems. Because you're right, complexity is a big issue, and while you're like, so I don't know if we've talked about this here, but there's so learning, there's awareness, there's fluency, there's proficiency, and there is fluency. And so when you don't know anything, it's just awareness. And a talk is excellent for awareness. Like, hey, I didn't know this thing existed. I saw this talk. Now I know that it exists. But it doesn't do anything for proficiency, right? And a great way to think of this is just, let's say I gave a talk on how to ride a bike. Nobody is walking out of there who hasn't ridden a bike and is going to ride a bike. And I don't care if you're like, I'm a visual learner, I'm an auditory learner. Like, nobody learns to ride a bike without getting on the damn bike. Like, that's just how that works. Proficiency is I can ride a bike, but with all of my concentration going into it. Right? So I'm on a track. There's no one around me. I'm going. This is what is happening with your kid when you're first teaching them. They're getting proficient. But the moment like other things come in, this is where you crash the bike. All right? Fluency is I can do this without consciously thinking about it. Right? Which is like where most of us are on a bike now, where it's like you can have a conversation and do all these other things while you're biking. Proficiency only occurs by doing stuff, and fluency only occurs by doing stuff repetitively, right? So fluency is I am proficient in a thing, and then I do it repetitively enough that it moves into my subconscious. Shoot, I was trying to remember why I brought this up. What did we talk about right before this? So in terms of how to work together. Right, we are not at fluency right now. We are at some level of proficiency, right? And as we do it more, that will go down. But my point is like, so one thing, like I like doing dancing, and so I would go to like my salsa class, and my teacher would teach me how to move my feet, and I could move my feet, and then she would teach me how to move my hands, and I could move my hands. And then she'd be like, do the dance. And all of a sudden, I can't move my feet and my hands at the same time. And the reason is because I'm proficient in those two things, but I am not fluent in those two things. And you only can do one fluent thing at a time. Or sorry, I said that exactly the opposite. You only can do one proficient thing at a time. So one of the reasons to keep complexity low is because right now a lot of your energy is going into how do I even work together? And that's where your conscious energy is like at the forefront. And because it's taking so much of your reserves, I don't want to add on to that a programming task that is like way above what people can handle. I actually want the programming task to be at the fluency level so that you can focus on the how do we work. Is there more, or have we sort of come to the end? So an hour and a half, again, shows that I'm just really horrible at budgeting how much time you need for a retro. But it's interesting that we spent an hour and a half retroing 2.5 hours of working together that started like a half hour in.
Or that we all were really interested about the topic, right?
Yeah. I'm going to publish this. Oh, sorry, say again?
Yeah, it was just a question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So publish. At some point, this should show up somewhere. We'll just Twitter it. Okay.
No.
Nope, that didn't help. Links. Copy that. And then let's put that into the notes here. Yeah. All right. I think that's everything.
How do you want to do the talk on Thursday? You will just share your screen, I assume?
Yeah, so the talk on Thursday is going to be a lecture. So it's an awareness talk as opposed to a proficiency lab.
Okay.
I will be using clips from this video. I have no idea what those are going to be yet, but I'll try to figure it out before Thursday.
Where cool. Have you shared this link to this retrospective mind map?
So here in, oh, wait, you're right. That's not at all what I thought it was. Thank you. Copy.
Just tweet it directly, not from their interface.
So now in the Google Doc, you should be able to go click it to the thing. Yeah, sorry.
Google Doc. Yeah, got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I recorded the Zoom session, but I guess the video on Twitch will be also stored there.
Hopefully one of those two will work. If the Twitch one isn't doing well, I will ping you for the, for the Zoom.
Awesome.
All right. And yeah, with that, I'm going to
there will be 30 to 40 participants, at least 30 to 40 participants signed up for the talk on Thursday. Yeah.
All right.
We'll do a little bit more advertisement on Twitter. Maybe more people will join.
That sounds good. I'm going to actually kill the machine now. And, actually, before I do that, let me...
You did push, right?
I did push. So one thing that is interesting here is that script. Let's pull up that script for a second. So let's go to C, code, starter project, open this in Notepad. So this is the script that I used to create the machine. Basically what I did is run this one line, which gets this URL and then pipes it into evaluating that URL, which is a fairly common Linux trick to do things on the command line. It installs Chocolatey and sets up the audio service to work. It then installs using Chocolatey, which is akin to like apt-get or yum or homebrew. Installs like the basic things that we use a lot. The web timer is not on Chocolatey, so we just have to open that and get it. And then also install the specific things that I needed for this Java project, right? So Notepad++, Beyond Compare, JGK8, IntelliJ, Maven. Clone the repo. And then this actually didn't occur because I don't have a desktop background for this, but often I will set the desktop background on my machine so that people know where they're, like it's just easier to be like, oh yeah, it's that machine. Anyhow, I think that this stuff is really useful, and I would actually love to see more repos include here's a, so most repos are like, clone the repo and go. I actually love the idea of like, run this script and you have a dev environment to go.
So who owns the Windows license? Do you get a machine contained with a Windows license to run it?
Yes, yeah. So when you start an EC2 instance, you can start a Windows, like, so this is an EC2 instance on Windows Server. It comes with a Windows license. Like I don't have to install server.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a little bit more expensive, right, than Linux.
Yeah, I think I'm paying like 10 cents an hour or something for this, and then again I like, turn them off and destroy them when they're gone.
Yeah.
For dev machines, it's super easy as long as you turn them off because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is the win, no, annoy?
Yeah, so this has something to do with, I forget exactly what it is, but there's a whole bunch of server settings that are like trying to lock down security that on a you're right, because this is Windows 2019 server as opposed to like Windows 10, right? And so it's just like, just let me connect to the internet. Let me do, that kind of stuff.
That's super useful.
Yeah. But anyhow, so this is in the starter project for the approval test.java.starter project. You can clone it from there, do it. I have it in a decent amount of my projects now, so I have like a .NET version and a C++ version and that kind of stuff. Anyhow, I found this really, really useful. I just want to share it if you do start up a machine. And I think it took us about 30 minutes to go from nothing to a workable machine yesterday. Is that about right? Yeah. All right.
Even less than 30. Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, Llewellyn. Thanks everybody for joining, and see you all on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Harold, for
It was really fun.
So have a good time.